Aaron, are we almost ready to get started? All right. Let's call to order the Timnath Town Council work session meeting. It's Tuesday, March 10th, 2026. This is the Which Wheels Go Where work session. Can we do a roll call, please?
Mayor Robert Axmacher, Mayor Pro Tem Luke Wagner,
Here.
Council Member Jeremy Holt,
Here.
Council Member Bill Jenkins,
Here.
Council Member Lisa Lake.
Here.
And just for the record, the mayor did let us know that he was going to be absent for this work session, so we can continue forward. All right. Director Cassell, do you want to lead us off, please?
Yeah, so thanks for having us here. We have a Which Wheels Go Where conversation that we'll be having tonight. We've been working on this for quite some time. We do have the present set up for, we'd like to try to go through just kind of the whole process of how we got here. We do have a few areas where we're asking for council to weigh in on, and then we'll leave it up for general conversation at the end. So to try to keep this focused and on time, we'd like to try to get through the presentation and then have the conversations and questions towards the end if possible. So if that's agreeable, then we'll go ahead and get started.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Good evening, council members. Our agenda for the evening, we're going to be going over key state law guardrails, review our proposed Which Wheels Go Where framework and draft ordinance approach, receive council direction on 4 policy questions / discussion topics, and go over some next steps after we get through that. The 4 council policy questions and discussion topics that we want you guys to keep in mind throughout the presentation are related to human-powered vehicles on roadways and bike lanes, Class 3 e-bikes on sidewalks, trails, and town-owned facilities, toy vehicles and off-highway vehicles in public areas, and e-motos.
So why we're updating is we're not really updating. We really don't have a e-bike policy to date. We're a little bit behind the times as far as a lot of communities adopted e-bike policies long ago, but we're in the same boat as the rest of these. As a lot of folks are scrambling now with the popularity of some of these toy vehicles. So there's more device types on the streets, sidewalks, and trails. Speed difference and user conflicts are increasing in pedestrian-oriented areas. We've received numerous public feedback and highlighted the need for clearer rules and better education. We need to increasing issues with high-speed devices used by minors. We are experiencing damage to town-owned property, as you can see in that photo. And then we just need for clear rules and consistent messaging.
State law and local authority. So Colorado state law provides the baseline for these device types, which includes bikes, e-bikes, e-scooters, low-power scooters, and other devices that we're going to be talking about. Timnath is allowed to regulate on sidewalks, trails, town-owned facilities, and post additional restrictions, as well as granting some additional capabilities. There are some additional guardrails, though, some nuances. For example, e-scooter regulations may be no more restricted than the town's treatment of Class 1 e-bikes. There's other things like that within state law that we need to continue to follow. The draft code is intended to align with state law while addressing local safety and enforcement needs.
So as far as the engagement process goes, we went ahead and we did present this to Prost on 2 different occasions, one in October of 2025 and again in February of 2026. We'd had an online public survey that was out there for a couple weeks through the month of February, where we received 72 responses. We've been paying close attention to the social media through our updates that we're putting out there. And then we also had multi-staff department discussions and review. We have met with PD as well as just internal staff. And then also we wanted to see what our neighboring communities are doing. So we checked in with what Fort Collins, Windsor, Boulder, the NFR, MPO, NOCO Bike Ped Collaborative.
Our guiding principles. So as we were drafting or putting together this policy for code revisions, we wanted to use Colorado statutory definitions where possible, maintain consistency with our regional peers. No one knows the difference between a Fort Collins sidewalk and a Timnath sidewalk. I mean, if you guys want to paint them a different color, but I think Justin might not like that. We want to avoid creating new local categories when an existing category already applies. From a safety standpoint, pedestrians are our priority user on sidewalks and trails. Rules should be simple to understand and practical to enforce. And the use of signage and dismount zones are tools that we have for location-specific restrictions as needed. Device types. There are a lot of device types in Colorado state law. Some of them are not super clear. So we have pictures. A bike, which is obviously a bike. E-scooters are also pretty stand-up. They're stand-up devices, handlebars, motor only, max speed of 20. Human-powered vehicles. This is a new category that we're defining in alignment with Fort Collins. This is pulling rollerblades and your skateboards out of the toy vehicle category. We love active transportation, and it's a little bit different than some of the other toy vehicles. That's why that one was created. E-bike class 1 through class 3. E-bikes class 1 are pedal assist only with assistance stops at 20 miles per hour. E-bike class 2 are throttle capable with assistance stops at 20. And e-bikes class 3 can go up to 28 miles an hour and a speedometer is required. More devices. Toy vehicles. Toy vehicles are small motorized devices that are not designed for use on our roadways or off-road use. Example is our mini bikes, pocket bikes, GoPeds, etc. Off-highway vehicles are ATVs. I don't think I've seen one of those in Timnath yet, but low-power scooters are essentially mopeds, roadway vehicles, 3 wheels, no manual clutch. And then we also have an e-moto category as well.
So here's the general proposed framework that we have. In orange is some things that we'll be having our discussion as we move forward. But basically, you know, our bikes will be allowed pretty much everywhere. Same with class 1 and class 2 e-bikes. Class 3 roadways and bike lanes, but then we would want some input from council about sidewalks. And then to fall in line with Fort Collins and Windsor, we do have E3s prohibited on our trails and parks. Then we also have some discussions about human-powered vehicles and what do we allow them on roadways and bike lanes, and then the toy vehicles, we'll have them prohibited, but we'll have a discussion on that. And then furthermore, we'll talk a little bit more about e-motos and low-power scooters. So some of the proposed highlights: all-wheeled devices are prohibited from grass, playgrounds, splash pads. So that's to keep people out of the high pedestrian use areas. So we'll establish some dismount zones, restrict routes, and implement temporary or seasonal closures by signage. For example, right now the intent is to have dismount zones in those heavy traffic areas where the restroom buildings are, over by the reservoir, right where between the bathrooms and the pavilions, and so those would be marked on the concrete, so people would clearly know what the dismount area is. So once you get to your destination, you'll need to get off your bike and walk it. And those will, for the most part, will be used in the parks. And also in alignment with state law, all e-bikes must be labeled. Class 3 e-bikes may only be operated by people 16 years of age or older, but it is they are able to have multiple riders or multiple users on there, so anybody under the age of 18 would need to wear a helmet. Some of the things that we plan on doing once this policy is in place is we'll do a heavy education program with this. Simple device types, what you have and where you can ride, on-site signage, portable print materials. We'll have stuff on our website. Pedestrian priority messaging, reminding all users to yield and audible signals for pedestrians and maintain safe speeds. School opportunities, putting this in with our Safe Routes to School education program that we're currently doing with school handouts, also community events. We'll do some outreach at our community events. And then we want to provide the police officers with some material supporting education first interactions. And so here's some of the things that we would potentially do. These are what they were used in Windsor that Ben has worked
All right, implementation tools. After this is done, some of the tools that we will have that are available, as Tom mentioned, are posted signs and dismount zones for our high conflict locations like parks. That would be putting thermoplastic down. Posted and recommended speeds within town-owned facilities. So for example, sidewalks, 10 miles an hour, 15 miles an hour for trails. Those would be recommended. And additionally, the e-bike label compliance and alignment with state law. From an enforcement side, it's an education-first approach focused on compliance. Really trying to hit it hard with education. The code would have the parental responsibility provision to address minors operating in violation of town rules and state law. I believe the Colorado state is currently working on that provision, and we would have that draft language in ours as well. And citations or penalties remain available when needed. So those would be included in the code to be used from the enforcement standpoint as they do need to, as a last resort. All right, now we have made it to our working portion of the work session. So we have 4 discussion topics for you, and then we want to leave time for some open discussion as well. So the first question is human-powered vehicles, so essentially roller skates and skateboards, allowing them on streets and bike lanes. Per state law, these devices are not currently allowed in streets. We have created a separate category for them in alignment with Fort Collins human-powered vehicles. Typically what we're seeing is they're used for short local trips. It's a lower stress network on those types of roads. So for example, on your neighborhood local streets and on your minor collectors. And it also aligns with Fort Collins. We recommend allowing them on streets up to 30 miles an hour, similarly putting some guardrails on it. We absolutely do not want to see them on Harmony, but you know, on our local streets, it makes a lot of sense. So, thoughts? Just human powered. Those we are going to cover in a different question and would be considered a toy vehicle.
So with regard to human powered, if they're allowed on the sidewalk,
Correct.
they're allowed in the bike lane.
Correct. No, not currently.
Pardon?
Not currently. We are proposing to allow them in a
if they are allowed in the bike lane,
Mm-hmm.
okay. I guess most of our roads that are 30 miles an hour have bike lanes. So if we change the roadways to 25 and under, where most of those don't have bike lanes. Some do, most don't, right? Like my neighborhood streets don't have a bike lane, they have sidewalks on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'd be in favor of it if it was perhaps a lower speed limit, so it's really just the residential areas where I could see, you know, allowing it there. But
Mm-hmm. I think the neighborhood collectors, our thought was for example, Saddlehorn, like allowing them on in that sort of an environment if they feel comfortable. And again, you're not forcing anyone to be there. It's just mostly saying you could be there if you want to. But I get the 25 as well. Creating that low stress network.
Saddlehorn's 25, right?
Some of our more neighborhood style collectors go up to 30. So similar types of roads to Saddlehorn are 25 to 30.
In those higher speed, I'm worried about the conflict with somebody who's maybe going 10 or 15 miles an hour on a skateboard, or and you've got somebody going 30 miles an hour. And if there's a collision there, there's likely to be serious injury or death.
Yep.
I just don't think it makes sense to put low speed, human powered, where you have a 2,000 pound plus vehicle going 30 miles an hour. I think that's a recipe for a serious injury or death. Doesn't make sense to me. When there are alternatives, all of those streets have sidewalks that are perfectly safe. Most of our sidewalks are pretty wide. And it's a lot more compatible with somebody on a human-powered skateboard or scooter or whatever. With a pedestrian, it's less likely if they had a conflict that somebody's going to be seriously injured. That's my take on it.
I was just wondering if you could, so when Bill was talking, I was thinking of Summerfield's Parkway, let's say by the pool and the clubhouse is 30. But I know that there are bike lanes. Are there
And
streets?
sidewalks.
And sidewalks. Are there roads in town that you're aware of that would be faster than 25 right now that do not have a bike lane?
Think there might be a couple. Now, we will also be doing a speed review during our safety action plan because some of our neighborhood collectors are a little between 25 and 30, and some people wonder why. So we will be evaluating that during that time. But I hear what you guys are saying with the maybe it makes more sense instead of allowing them on roadways on 30, we allow them more in the bike. We push them to the bike lanes, and then on the 25 and under, we are obviously there's no striping there.
Yeah, unless there's roads that we can think of, and I know I can't personally think of any that are 30 or higher that don't have.
We are very lucky to have a very complete multimodal network where we are built out. Caveat.
Yeah, so I think related to that, personally, I feel like they should be allowed on the bike lane, just because,
Yeah.
you know, similar. But on streets, maybe if there's no bike lane and the speed limit is up to 30 or something like that.
So I'm going to be the young one. Especially like I see kids, couple things I think of. I think of Wayne's World, and I think of my neighborhood of kids on the rollerblades playing hockey, you know, game on Wayne, game on Garth, right in the front where they're outside playing and enjoying it in a neighborhood that has 25 in the, I go with my kid and we rollerblade around with hockey sticks all the time on streets that are 25 or below, right, in our neighborhood. I think, my opinion, on a skateboard, which you can hop off of, or on rollerblades, which you can easily get out of the way, I think I'm okay with them on 25 mile per hour. I would make recommendations and highly encourage them to stay in the bike lane. The sidewalk on those tends to get actually more dangerous than having them in the streets. Sidewalks aren't all even, and if you get cracks in the sidewalk and you get a skateboard that hits that crack, you go.
I'm not very good on my skateboard, so I get it.
It's not good. I've done it on a longboard. So I would say I would encourage more in the bike lane, but on lower mile per hour in the street is fine with anything with caution. And then obviously in the sidewalks is needed, but I mean, there's more caution needed on the sidewalks just due to the lack of structure on some of those.
The one thing just to point out, just to be clear, allowing like rollerblades and skateboards, it would be in alignment with using it as a transportation facility. So while we are not making any comment on people using it for fun things, like I'm sure a lot of our children do, we are not also encouraging that with this code whatsoever.
Yep.
Virtually transportation related things only.
Can't say Councilmember Holt encourages Wayne's World in the middle of the street.
No, we will not be saying that.
Okay. It should. It is a quote. Yes. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I think looking at 25 and under makes more sense to me. On sidewalks, I think about realistically how fast someone can get going on rollerblades or skateboard. And I think collisions on a sidewalk are not going to be as bad as someone doing 30, to your point, on the sidewalk. So I think 30 would make me a little nervous because someone doing 30 is more likely to do 35 of what I see around neighborhoods and areas. So I think I would say maybe 25 would be more appropriate in my mind, just for safety of the kids in our neighborhoods and what I see of our drivers and kind of what we see for distracted driving. So I'm kind of in agreement with everybody else to think 25 would be my recommendation, because I do think longboards, to your point, there's some different means to get around, and I think streets are better than sidewalks sometimes for that. So I think I would look to 25 and under myself.
Sounds great. You guys are doing good. Policy question number 2. All right. Class 3 e-bikes on sidewalks, trails, and within town-owned facilities. For some background, Class 1 and 2 e-bikes and e-scooters may currently use bicycle and pedestrian paths unless locally restricted. Class 3 e-bikes may not use a bicycle and pedestrian path unless the path is within a street or highway or the local jurisdiction permits it. Staff recommends, in alignment with neighboring communities, allowing Class 3 e-bikes on sidewalks and prohibiting them on trails and within town-owned facilities. When we're talking about town-owned facilities, we are obviously talking about parks, open space, paved surfaces. Discussion points. Fort Collins and Windsor do not allow Class 3 e-bikes on their trails. Class 3 e-bikes operate at higher speeds than Class 1 and 2 devices. They can go up to 28 miles an hour, and trail conflicts are more likely in higher pedestrian areas with lower speed pedestrians. So the options are available to you. You can prohibit them on all of the facilities we just mentioned. We can allow them on sidewalks and prohibit them on trails and within town-owned facilities, which is staff recommendation, or you can allow them everywhere.
I have a concern again with regard to speed on the sidewalk. I suppose I would allow them on the sidewalk if they didn't exceed 20 miles an hour. So I would put a speed limit, because they can be operated like a Class 2. It's your choice to go full throttle, right? And I don't think a vehicle loaded with a, let's say, 175-pound adult plus the weight of the vehicle going 28 miles an hour, that's a lot of kinetic energy if it hits an individual on the sidewalk. So I would allow it, but have a speed limit of 20 miles an hour, which is the same as the Class 2 that is allowed on the sidewalk.
I think the speed limit we were potentially thinking was 15 on trails. Speed recommendation was 15
okay.
on trails and potentially 10 on sidewalks.
Oh, so you would have a speed limit?
No, not in the code.
Or would it be just
recommended heavy education?
Within the code, within the code, it would have a recommended speed limit of 10 miles an hour for sidewalks and 15 for trails.
In coordination with other jurisdictions and our own police department, enforceability of speeds was a concern, but this is why we're discussing, so.
So I apologize. Tom knows that I get heated on this particular topic as an e-bike user. And I will admit, I have a Class 3 e-bike. I have never gotten up to 28 miles an hour. It actually collects all the data for me, and I can see that my average speed is typically 12 to 15 miles per hour. And most of the time when I'm riding, well, one, I got the Class 3 not because it goes faster, because I don't like to go that fast, but because for those who don't know me, I will let you know that I am not a very tall person, and some of the other bikes just didn't fit me, so I got one that fit me. And most of the time when I ride, I've been where I had my Class 3 bike, I was with somebody else with a Class 2 e-bike, and the third person with us had a traditional pedal bike. And our behaviors were all the same, except for the fact that the pedal bike was actually in front of my friend and I, because with a pedal bike, you can go, 30 plus miles an hour as well. So I would be absolutely okay with speed limits. I don't feel that the type of bike necessarily defines how the user is using that bike. And I know, for example, for me, living on the south side of town with the trail coming to completion, if Class 3 e-bikes were not allowed, I would have two choices. Just go against the rule, which I'm typically a rule follower, and that doesn't appeal to me. Or the town would be telling me that I have to be on Colorado Boulevard to go to Windsor. And I can tell you right now, there is no way I'm riding my bike on Colorado Boulevard going 12 to 15 miles per hour. And I think also that within town, there's a lot of crossover with our sidewalks also being a trail. And I think that could bring about a lot of confusion. The Poudre River Trail right now is on the sidewalk along River Pass, along Three Bell, within the neighborhood of Trailside. And so I worry that if it's allowed on some and not others, there's going to be that confusion. And again, I always look at, what are we trying to accomplish? Are we trying to prevent something, or are we trying to promote something? And by excluding one particular type, are we accomplishing that? And I don't think we are, because I know the people I ride with are not riding over that, 20 miles an hour. And I don't necessarily, and I've said it up here before, I don't like to make rules based on those who are not going to follow the rules, or based on the assumption that people are going to choose to do wrong. So for that particular piece, I, of course, think they should be allowed on trails with speed limits. Like, I'm okay with that. And part of it is because if it is prohibited, I know I'm going to do it anyway in a safe way. And I think the majority of people who I know slow down when there are pedestrians nearby. They are not speeding through high population areas. And the ones who maybe are going to do it regardless of whether there's a rule or not, and I don't want to hurt the people who are trying to follow the rules.
My question is, and maybe a question for you guys, maybe a question for our PD, but most of these bikes look the same, whether they're class 1, class 2, class 3, and a little bit ago it said something about them being marked. Are you gonna have like a big reflective 1, 2, 3 sticker that is mandatory? Like how, and then who's gonna enforce it? Because if, I've had e-bikes before too, never used it enough, so I ended up selling them quickly, but they're well more than capable of doing, class 1s can go more than 20. You can easily take off the restriction. Class 2, same. Class 3, I mean, I had one that was, that we rode up in Aspen, and we went on a 11, 12-mile trail that we were doing 40 mile an hour, that were full of e-bikes, right? So I think the actual cracking down on this is going to be difficult, just in my opinion, unless you tell me otherwise. If you make 3 different classes and restrict one of them from a small portion of it. I don't know, and you guys probably have the studies more than us of who the, I wouldn't say culprits, but who is more likely to break these rules. Is it adults? Is it kids that have access to this that shouldn't be running 20 miles per hour on anything anyway? What are who are we watching out for, I guess, on this, or what's the statistic of the offenders?
I do know that the state, these are already existing categories, so these are the same state definitions as what we're proposing.
Sure.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Kim, class 3, does that have to be over 16 to drive that anyway?
So class 3, you have to be 16 years or older to ride a class 3. You have to wear a helmet. So the state has already started us down this pathway with the stickers and the classifications and the e-bikes. From a compliance side, you're absolutely right. It is going to be very hard to affect compliance. Now, code, though, is a framework by which it, again, our main focus on this is education. And it's not to be like you're excluding. What we're trying to do is get those safe speeds, those safe behaviors. But it is a tool that if something did happen, there is a framework for saying you were not allowed here. So I guess there is 2 ways to look at it. Sidewalks are a form of transportation, which is why, again, on street, kind of allowing them there. The tricky part is that our neighbors and our regional collaboration are pointing to trails as being like, no. And the other portion is that as we get into the e-moto category, well, where do we draw that line? Is a device that can go up to 28 okay? Is a device that can go up to 30? They keep making different types of vehicles, which is one of the challenges that we're going to have to talk about. So I think the thing is that from an education standpoint, we are 100% on the same page. The question is how do you write the code? Do you write it in a way that you're creating some groundwork and framework, or do you create it in a way that's more open-ended? So, but I think the end result is probably the same.
Class 3, and you would probably know more than me, Class 3 still has pedal assist, yeah? So there's no like distinctive,
Yeah, and even,
just throttle only type?
well, and the throttle only goes 20. The throttle does not go 28. Yeah, and so I guess you actually brought up a point that I was asking before. What are we trying to accomplish? And you brought up speed. Device to me does not dictate speed. Are we trying to fix a problem with people going too fast? In which case, does it matter what device, or are we trying to focus? Should we be focusing on limiting speeds on sidewalks, limiting speeds on trails? Because just because, like you said, the friend I have with a Class 2 e-bike, because I do believe these definitions are not quite accurate anymore, she's gone over 20 on her Class 2 bike. And so that's where I always come up, is it a behavior that we're trying to fix? Or is it having these types of vehicles? Like, we have cars that go faster than the speed limits. That doesn't mean we prevent those cars from driving on our roads, because we expect people, for the most part, to be obeying speed limits. So in my mind, this is similar in the sense that it's a behavior we're trying to change. It's not a device thing we're trying to change.
Yeah, so a couple things. One, I believe the state law requires the labeling of the vehicles. So that's not, I mean, we're just mimicking what the state law already says and what all of the dealers have to abide by in order to sell these e-bikes. They have to be labeled accordingly. And I'm sure, because there was a gentleman from Windsor who lives in Timnath that owns an e-bike store based in Windsor, and he has to educate the people coming in about the different classes and speeds and age restrictions, et cetera, including the helmets, which I'm sure he sells helmets to everybody. Yeah, so the labeling is state mandated. I'm not worried about the labeling. I think also the 20-mile-an-hour limit, even though those bikes can go faster if they're going downhill or pedaled, by electric throttle, they're not supposed to exceed 20 miles an hour. And if they've been modified, then they no longer meet the classification, so that somebody's made an illegal modification, which we can't really control either. So I think sticking with the Class 1, 2, and 3 makes sense. That's the framework that the state has. I think to your point, Lisa, the fact of the matter is the Poudre River Trail goes through the neighborhood and uses neighborhood sidewalks. And if we say prohibited on trails, like Windsor, Windsor has the prohibition on one end, and Fort Collins has the prohibition on the other end, and yet the trail rides through our neighborhood, that's going to be an issue, because I think we have to have it prohibited there. But then if we allow them on our regular sidewalks, they're going to say, but that's our neighborhood sidewalk. It's also the Poudre River Trail. So which is it from an enforcement perspective or rider perspective? It is going to create confusion unless you exempt it. If you say they're allowed on sidewalks and this sidewalk happens to be the trail, it's okay that it's allowed on the sidewalk. I think you're going to have to make an exception there, or people are going to be pointing fingers. And I like the recommended speed limit, and hopefully people will abide by it. It's going to be hard to enforce.
Very hard to enforce.
Yeah, so education obviously is the way to go. And I don't think the people that are most likely that I've seen in the neighborhood that ride excessive speeds on electric vehicles are not Class 3 e-bike riders. They tend to be younger kids, unsupervised tweens on vehicles that go much faster than 28 miles an hour. So it's a different problem.
Sorry, Kim, can I just ask a clarifying question on this one? So, we've got sidewalks in this category, and then on the right-hand side, where we've got within parks, reservoirs, and open spaces, which says parking lots, bike lanes, sidewalks, etc. Can you just clarify there for me in the why it says sidewalks there, and then I kind of agree with trails based on where we stand with trails, kind of allowing it there, but maybe the rationale of why it should be prohibited within parks, reservoirs, and open spaces, why Class 3 should be prohibited there. Like what the staff recommendation is for the last category of why it shouldn't be there. Like, so first, maybe what sidewalks difference is between like in that category, the two differences in sidewalks, and then why staff is recommending in the last category it should be prohibited Class 3 there.
So
Sorry.
for the sidewalks within the parks, those are, so not, the trail in the parks is just the Poudre Trail through the community park. The rest of them would be classified as sidewalks within the park itself.
Okay.
So if you're on a bike, you could be on the concrete trail, which is a sidewalk, till you get to the dismount zones, and then you would have to hop off.
Okay.
We're looking at the e-bikes, like I said, across the board for all, to prohibit in the parks, open space trails across the board,
Okay.
which is similar to what our neighboring communities are doing.
And our neighboring communities are only excluding Class 3 and not all? Are they going towards excluding them all on the trails? No? Okay. Is there areas, and maybe we already covered this, sorry, but is there areas in Fort Collins and Windsor that have dual purpose, meaning sidewalk trails are the same? What do they do there?
I can't speak specifically, but I believe in Fort Collins, they do have those types of joint ventures.
Do they consider that a trail or do they consider that a sidewalk?
I think they're usually signed. So on trails, we would have signage defining that it would be a trail. So recommended speed limits, everything else. When we're talking about sidewalks, it's anything from shared use paths. So like being on Harmony Road, for example, places like that.
Are we gonna, if we're gonna set speed limits on trails, why wouldn't we do the same set speed limits? Or are we planning on doing that on sidewalks too?
Recommended. We wouldn't post them everywhere because I don't have that much money from
That's
a sign
all.
budget,
That's
but we would be educating to try to best practices. You know, we have ideas to use like variable message boards to try to help people post it. We talked about the speed trailers, but we might encourage more speeding. You know, like I said, we're bouncing through a lot of ideas from educational perspectives.
I would imagine that some of those sidewalk areas that are considered Poudre Trail, we would definitely have the signage posted with the speed limits.
Going back to, I think, Luke's point, I'm all for in the parks where there's high population people, especially kids running all over the place. Why not then, just throwing it out there, why not have those areas in all parks? Or maybe, again, it's a cost thing of having that be dismount zones to where whether it's 20 miles an hour or 28 doesn't matter to me, right? Anything more than 10 miles an hour riding through a park with kids running around is probably dangerous. So would it be beneficial in those specific areas to exclude or have dismount zones in all noted park areas?
So within the policy, it says any parking lot, and you don't have access to the whole policy. We're just trying to get the high level
Sure.
to keep us on schedule and on time. But
Gotcha.
it does say any parking lot or area, drive, trail, or designated roadway within a town-owned facility is 10 miles per hour. And those are recommended, not.
Got it.
Tom would also be putting up the dismount zones as well.
Okay. So we're going to do dismount.
He is doing dismount.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect. So just a quick comment. What's everybody's thoughts on the last two for trails sounds like, can we just get everybody's quick opinion for class 3 so we can get to the following categories for sidewalks, trails, and open spaces?
In case I was not clear,
Well,
I
yeah.
believe that Class 3 e-bikes should be allowed on trails and have the same restrictions as other classes of e-bikes.
Which Windsor and Fort Collins and I presume Greeley doesn't, so you're basically in conflict with the surrounding towns. So I think I wouldn't agree with that. I would stick with what Fort Collins and what Windsor, and I presume Greeley has the same regulations with regard to Class 3 e-bikes. I just think creating something different in Timnath than surrounding towns doesn't make sense.
Let's hear it.
I would, however, with the caveat of the posted speed limit on the trail that goes, the sidewalk trail that goes down Three Bell and through Trailside and Timnath Ranch, where it's community sidewalks, neighborhood sidewalks, I would allow them there and post the speed limit on that section.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
That's my opinion.
So, for E3s you would allow?
No, I think you're saying, Bill, sidewalks allowed, trails, open spaces, no. Is that what you're saying? So you're saying keeping it at,
No for trails, no for the parks as you've got it labeled. I would say prohibited in trails, prohibited within parks as you've defined it, and allowed on sidewalks, with the exception of the neighborhood sidewalk that is also a trail. I would consider that a sidewalk for the purpose of interpreting Class 3 e-bikes. And on the sidewalk that is also a trail within town, I would post the speed limit on that specific section, which basically is Trailside, the sidewalk on Three Bell and River Pass. And then when it gets to the park, now it's purely a trail at that point. And I would say the Class 3 e-bikes wouldn't be allowed there, just like every other town around us.
your thoughts, Jeremy?
I'll make it quick. Honestly, I'm torn just because I don't have enough information. I believe what Lisa said wholeheartedly. People are going to do what they are going to do. People are going to adjust if they want their Class 1 faster or Class 2 or whatever it may be. They're going to abide by the rules. They're going to do it whether it's a Class 1 or a Class 3. It's confusing, but I also don't want Timnath to be the rebel in this situation if our neighboring towns don't allow it on any other trails and then you can allow it here, so I can see both sides of it. But I'm conflicted in the fact that I think the same person that's got on a Class 1 that's also on a Class 3 is going to do the same thing regardless of which bike they're on. So I'm torn there.
Yeah, I'm going to go with staff's recommendation on this based on what you guys have. I think it's tough to know, and I think people will do what they need to do. But I think having this, and based on Bill's feedback, I like that kind of look at this. But I'm going to go with staff's feedback on this one.
Okay, thank you. We can also continue to work with our regional partners on consistency and continuing to push that. Consistency is obviously an important part, but we want to continue to work with them maybe on updating that. All right, policy question number 3. We have 15 minutes left. Toy vehicles and off-highway vehicles in public areas. So state law, toy vehicles are not roadway vehicles. Off-highway vehicles are separately regulated under state law. These are our mini bikes, pocket bikes, ATVs, you name it, those sorts of things. Staff recommends prohibiting toy vehicles and off-highway vehicles on roadways, sidewalks, trails, parks, open space, and other town-controlled property, essentially everywhere, except for private property and except for vehicles with a max speed of 5 miles an hour and parental supervision. So i.e. little Jeeps, Barbie Jeeps. Discussion points. Devices are not street legal and are not intended for pedestrian-oriented facilities. They may exceed typical e-bike speeds of 28 to 50 miles an hour, posing safety issues on trails, parks, and sidewalks, and damage to town property and conflicts with other users are concerns. Our recommendation is to prohibit on sidewalks, trails, parks, and open space. They're already banned off roadways, so we're just not talking about that.
100% agree.
I'm in full support, coming from somebody that used to professionally race motorcycles. There's a time and a place and a location for them, and our streets are not those. So most of them aren't even equipped for the street. They don't have the safety measures for it. Good luck trying to catch them when they know that they're in the wrong. So I would say that prohibiting them across all platforms except for private property is more than okay with me.
This one's tough only because I see the people who are, I don't see people using them necessarily as safely as possible, at least around our neighborhoods. I do worry about not having a place for them. So I think that would be my greatest concern, especially knowing that they are out there in our community. Now, I don't know the specifics of the ages of people riding them or anything like that, but I think this one's going to need a lot of education and perhaps somebody there to change some behaviors.
So one of my favorite, I guess, people that's online is Doodad, and I think to your point is, I think if we move towards this, we do need to find a place for our community to go. So I think as we look into future capital needs, is maybe trying to ask staff to look to give these kids some place to go. But I would ask the community to give support to this, because we need, is this really a community forward idea? Is it something that 20 people want? Is it something that 200 people want? Or is it something that, 1,000 people want? So I do think if that's something we could support, because I know there are places in Fort Collins to go for this. There's places in all around northern Colorado to go. So I am going to support prohibiting it, but I would like to hear from the community, not necessarily the frustration of, well, this is going to just be the end all be all, but like if there's community support for putting something else in there for this. So I think I'd like to hear more of some constructive ways to go forward with this for our community.
So I'm also a former motorcycle rider. I had a license to ride a motorcycle at 14 years of age, legally, on the street in Florida. I don't know if they still allow that, 5 brake horsepower or under. And I did a lot of off-road riding as well at higher speed with much more powerful bikes. That being said, you're right that there are numerous places around Colorado. It's an organized sport. My neighbors have 2 young kids that have been riding since they were very young, and their dad's an avid motorcycle rider, motocross, and they go almost every weekend when the weather's decent. They go to large, well-organized, instructed places where they have different classes by age and size of the rider, so kids ride at an appropriate speed and power on a course, and they're instructed, and they have all the safety gear in order to do that. And that's, helmets, boots, knee pads, et cetera. What we have is probably no more than 10 of these toy bikes that are not designed for the roadway that go at high speed, and they're running around town unsupervised. That's not appropriate. If we wanted to have an organized thing, you're with appropriate instruction, you're talking an awful lot of money to set that up and to do it right. And if you're going to do it, you need to do it in an appropriate way that matches what all these other sites, do. Yeah, I mean, this only became a problem recently when this new class of electric toy motorcycle-like vehicles became available in the United States without licensing and running at high speeds. So,
Last one.
All right, so this is more just, and you guys, and Bill almost did this slide for us. So this is our e-moto definition. E-motos are not currently defined by the state, but we are trying to add in a category, and Carolyn's going to review this even more with low power scooters and motorcycles, but a catch-all. So devices that are street legal, that do go at higher speeds, are expected to only operate on the street. They can have handlebars, a seat, 2 to 3 wheels, but essentially devices are constantly being modified. So what we're saying is that anything that isn't a toy, you know, toys are now prohibited on our sidewalks, trails, etc. If you think you can ride it on the street, register, insure, license is the only thing that would be allowed. So that kind of is the in-between between a full-on motorcycle and like a moped, essentially. And Carolyn's going to continue to work with us on definition and making sure that we're in alignment with those buckets.
I mean, the key there is that it's designed to meet the state safety standards. It has a VIN number. When you buy it, you must register it at the time of purchase, and you have to get insurance for it. And oh, by the way, anyone that rides one of these kind of vehicles also has to have a additional training by a state certified trainer that you know how to operate such a vehicle on the public highway. It's an amendment to your driver's license, so you have a motorcycle amendment. And that requires safety training passing. And I actually have that on my license in Colorado. So, without it, you're operating illegally and can be cited today.
So this one is, again, just more of a definition and just kind of an update. It ended up kind of being that way. So if we're good, we'll go on to the next slide, unless you guys have any more comments on that.
No.
Perfect.
So for our next steps, we'll take the direction that we got here. We'll go ahead and we'll draft a code. We'll prepare educational materials such as device definitions, where to ride, basically just overall education of what this policy entails. And then we are slated to return back to council. I believe we'll be back to council on May 12th for first reading, and then the 26th will be when we'll be looking at the second reading and to be adopted. So those are in May.
Sounds good.
Can I add a couple comments?
Yes, if you guys
One-
have any more comments,
Yeah.
7 minutes.
One, thank you. This is a immense amount of work that you guys put into it on not a easy topic. Zero politics or emotion involved in this one at all. So thank you, first and foremost. I just want to bring up, because it wasn't really talked about a whole bunch, my biggest concern of all of these, honestly, is the e-scooters, the stand-up scooters, because I've seen 15, 20 plus mile per hour scooters in the hands of 3- and 4-year-olds without helmets. and they can't even see the top, and they run, they go on the sidewalk, and then they come to an intersection and have no idea, and they end up throwing the scooter into the street, or, I mean, just Google e-scooter videos, and you can see the carnage of what they do to people. That's scary, so I don't know if there's, again, I'm okay with it, or they think they're good. I see, honestly, there's people that know what they're doing, teenage kids at the golf course that ride them along the trail with their golf clubs, right? I mean, they're pretty practical, but maybe or maybe you can just educate us on if we're gonna set age restrictions on some of those, I would recommend it, or maybe go down that path of looking into under the age of 10 or whatever it is, that we don't give somebody that's not even big enough to be on that the ability to ride a 20-mile-per-hour unsupervised vehicle that gets thrown into traffic. Just my 2 cents, but.
We can look into see what other communities are doing. The state put a lot of guardrails on making sure that e-scooters were allowed, I think mostly in the
They're
denser
great, yeah,
areas.
yeah.
But I'd hear the point on the age restrictions.
Just, yeah, that'd be, I mean, I think they're great. They serve a phenomenal purpose, just not for 3 and 4-year-olds.
Should be able to see over the handlebars.
I think this is where education can come in as well.
Yeah, I just, again, or if that's what we're doing, yeah, I mean, I think you guys you're crushing it on all this, so maybe just highlight some of those and use social media posts left and right on some of this stuff too to get it out, but yeah.
We had talked about trying to incorporate even more into the Safe Routes to School program. Currently, it is focused more on bicycle, but trying to see if there's opportunities to expand that. We will need a lot of volunteers for that, parent volunteers helping out in schools in order to make that program run.
Yeah, my comment is I was, I was really impressed with the community outreach on this one. We got tons of feedback, and both good and bad, but I was really impressed. I think something like this is something that a small community like ours, it's all over, but you guys did a great job, so thank you. And it takes a lot of work, to Jeremy's point. And I will also agree that I think there's the responsibility of parents involved in this. The only time I've had a significantly bad experience with scooters was when I was standing in a bus stop and there was a gang of e-scooters that almost ran down all of our kindergarten students waiting for the bus on the sidewalks. So I think there's also parent responsibility involved in this. So, but overall, thank you, because this made it easy to understand. I think this will make it easy for the community to understand. So I appreciate the hard work. Comments?
No, I'm interested in how we handle violations, but I guess we'll hear about that down the road.
Unless you want the 30-second answer. The 30-second answer is that the judge issues an order that sets the penalties for traffic violations, and the typical violation right now for this type of traffic violation looks like it's around $61, but that's what it would be, an average ticket. So if there were a repeat offender, then the judge has the ability to increase that. The maximum fine is $2,650 for traffic violations.
So if you have a scofflaw and they're back there the third or fourth time, it can get pretty expensive.
That's right.
Yeah, got it.
All right. So do you guys want to take a 5-minute break before we get started on the next
Thought you
thing?
were a rule conformer.
I'm a rule follower when the rule makes sense.
All right, we'll call the work session to close, and we'll take a 5-minute break before starting the council meeting. Thank you.
I heard skate park. I heard skate park. I thought I heard it. I definitely heard skate park. I'm pretty sure I heard skate park. Epic skate
It is on, right? All right, good evening, everyone. We actually have two separate meetings to hold here today. The first will be the Timnath Local Licensing Authority, and then after that, we'll do the regular town council meeting. So, first call to order, the Tuesday, March 10th, 2026, Timnath Local Licensing Authority meeting. Alpez, can we call the roll, please?
Mayor Robert Axmacher,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Luke Wagner,
Here.
Councilmember Jeremy Holt,
Here.
Councilmember Bill Jenkins,
Present.
Councilmember Lisa Lake.
Here.
Very good. So we are all present and accounted for. The Liquor Board has one item to consider this evening, Resolution L1 2026, Series 2026, resolution approving the liquor license for GQ Barbecue Timnath LLC. Ms. Steffel, can you walk us through this?
Thank you. Yes. So this is a public hearing. The town has received an application for a new liquor license. It's a hotel and restaurant liquor license for the location at 4931 Sima Vista Drive in Timnath, Colorado, and that is located in the Ladera development. And the application was submitted by GQ Barbecue for a new business to be established. The application has been reviewed by staff, specifically the deputy town clerk and the former town clerk a little bit before she left as well, and has determined that the application contains all required information, including a certificate of good standing and a lease or deed to the subject property. The application is complete, and included in the required information that they have to submit is a question as to whether the applicant has had any liquor license violations of the Colorado Liquor Code. And the response from the applicant was that The specific applicant, Jason Ganell, has never personally received a notice for violation of the Colorado Liquor Code, but businesses that he owns have received violations as follows. In June 2026, GQ Barbecue at Sheridan Crossing in Westminster received a violation for service to a minor. Licensee agreed to a settlement including a fine in lieu and 5 days suspension held in abeyance for 1 year. In October 2021, GQ Barbecue PM or where that's located, received, had a violation for service to a minor and reached a settlement, including a fine in lieu. And the third was in June 2025, GQ Barbecue in Thornton received a violation for service to a minor and allowing alcohol to leave its licensed premises, reached a settlement that included a fine in lieu and 8 days of suspension held in abeyance. The rest of the application did not receive anything that we want to specifically bring to your attention. Most notably, the background check did not find anything that would be of concern. So going through the criteria that the town considers, the first is that there's just restrictions. The license cannot be within 500 feet of public or private schools or within 500 feet of a location where the same type of liquor license was denied because of the reason we didn't think the neighborhood wanted it in the last 2 years. The location's not within 500 feet of a school or another location. The second one is that there's restrictions on who can be licensed. The applicant does not fit in any of the prohibited categories. The applicant is not a peace officer of the town, an employee of the liquor authority, or a liquor inspector. It's not a person under 21. And there was no indication that the applicant was not of good moral character. Nothing came up in the background check. So the recommendation is that the character, record, and reputation are satisfactory to staff in reviewing this application. The next one is that in issuing a new license, you look at the needs of the neighborhood and the requirements of the neighborhood. And in looking at the neighborhood, there's a presumption under our code that we look at a 1 mile square radius. The license applicant has the burden of proving that there's a need for issuance of the particular license in the reasonable requirements of the neighborhood, and that the license is desired by the adult inhabitants of the neighborhood. In looking at the need, you look at whether there's, a sufficient overabundance of similar liquor licenses in the neighborhood. This is the first hotel and restaurant liquor license in Ladera, so there's no other liquor licenses in the direct vicinity. And in terms of the adult needs, there was, they submitted a petition that was signed by both the owners of the businesses within the Ladera subdivision, as well as they did a neighborhood survey of adult residents as well. And in terms of the businesses, 54 businesses replied that they all indicated support for the application. And in terms of the adult residents, let me get the number. How many? 109 indicated that they were supportive. One individual later withdrew their support, saying they didn't understand the application, did not either support or reject the application. And so it was vastly in favor of supporting the liquor license application. So it did indicate desire of the adult residents to support the liquor license. So it was 109 in favor, 1 against, and 2 that did not express either desire or opposition. Okay, the council acting as the local license authority has the ability to approve, deny, or approve with conditions. And Staff has made a recommendation to approve issuance of a liquor license to GQ Barbecue Timnath LLC for this location. And I believe the applicant may have a representative here to talk. Yes, they do.
Thank you, Ms. Steffel. Good evening.
Good evening. Brian Profit, registration number 31101 on behalf of the applicant. But with me, I have the star this evening. This is Jason Ganal. He is the owner and operator of GQ Barbecue, hoping to come to Timnath, as well as their other locations throughout the Denver metro area.
Welcome. Thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it.
Briefly, I wanted to clarify one thing stated by Ms. Apologies. She was mentioning some of there were 3 prior liquor violations at his other restaurants, all of them. The first one she mentioned, she said 2026. It was actually back in 2016. So while there have been 3, the first one was in 2016, and then one around 21, and then 2025. So about every 5 years, unfortunately. And we'd be happy to discuss those. But I did want to clarify that that's not something that had just happened or is about to happen in the future, but has been almost 10 years since that had occurred.
I agree. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Thank you.
We do have a brief presentation for you this evening, but I also know you have a long evening ahead of you with your full city council agenda. So we'll leave it up to you. If you would have any questions that you have directly of us or of Mr. Ganal, we're happy to discuss his policies, procedures, his training, or we're also happy to go through our brief just kind of history of the company, as well as touch on those policies and procedures, which would take us probably 7 or 8 minutes.
So I'll tell you, we're always excited to have a new business come to town, and we appreciate the opportunity to learn about your establishment and what you have going on, and of course, hear about your plans to make sure that things go well. So I'd happily give you the floor and give you a chance to help educate us.
Certainly. Do you swear in? Okay. Well, Jason, can I have you maybe make a brief introduction?
Yep. My name is Jason Ganal. Like Brian said, you did a better job introducing me, I think, than I can. But I founded GQ Barbecue about 11 years ago. The first location was in Westminster, Colorado. I've opened up 4 other locations and then 3 stadium locations at the major stadiums in Denver, Empower Field where the Broncos play, Coors Field where the Rockies play, and then Folsom Field where the Buffs play. We have intentions in going to Canvas Stadium here too, where the Rams play. And already talking with them, and I already have a spot picked out with them, so hopefully we can make that happen also.
I'm going to make you brag a little bit, though. Before you even opened your first place, you were on the competitive barbecue circuit for years. Can you tell them a little bit about how you started the business?
You want to?
No.
Yeah, so my background, I'm originally from Missouri, and I love to eat barbecue, and moved out here. And in my quest to find barbecue that satisfied me, I went online and looked around, and I discovered the Kansas City Barbecue Society was throwing a professional barbecue event in Dillon, Colorado. And so I went up there one afternoon, and I was instantly hooked with the entire scene. I don't know if anybody's ever been to Frisco, has one, Dillon has one. It's lots of people, it's music, it's cold beer, ironically, a hot barbecue, beautiful weather, and I just really wanted to be a part of that community. So I started out as a barbecue judge, and I judged for about 3 years these different professional barbecue events. And then I had enough courage to actually enter into one of these barbecue events, and I got my butt kicked for about 2 years and just got a little bit better over those 2 years. And then my 3rd year, I started winning and won a lot, and then won a lot in 2013 and 2014. That's when I decided to open up a restaurant. Won the United States third largest contest. I've won Rocky Mountain Barbecue Association's Team of the Year, which is a 9-state, 30 contest event that takes place, series of events that takes place over the course of an entire year. And I'm inducted into the Rocky Mountain Barbecue Association Hall of Fame. I used to get invited to go on invitationals where they invite the top 20 cooks in the country, and I'd be the only person from this time zone that would get invited to these events. And I've got a nationally published book by Simon & Schuster coming out here in about 1 month. It's the premise of it is breaking barbecue boundaries. Like everyone always kind of thinks of Kansas City and Texas and places like that, but there's a well-known barbecue person here in Colorado and stuff. So I'm excited for that launch here in about a month.
So this will be your 5th brick and mortar.
Yes.
And you said about a month. When you hope to open?
Our target opening date is the middle of April. We don't have a set date. We hope to be turned over April 1st, ironically, which is April Fool's. And then we'll do about 2 weeks of training and then hope to open about the middle of April.
And what are your anticipated hours of operation?
11, and we used to say at 11 until we run out, but we figured out a way to kind of keep the barbecue fresh the next day. So I anticipate 11 till 10 p.m.
Is that 7 days a week? or-
7 days a week, yeah.
Can you tell us just briefly about your menu?
I can, since you
Briefly.
said you'd like to hear about it, yes. So we fancy ourselves in same-day smoked meat. So we have 6 meats that we cook every single day. We've got brisket, we've got chicken wings, we've got turkey, we have jalapeno cheddar sausage, we have pork ribs, they're spare ribs, a little bit more meatier, a little bit more flavorful, I think, than the baby back ribs. Is that 6? Did I name 6?
I wasn't counting.
Okay, I don't want to do any disservice to any one of our meats, so I want to make sure I mention all of them. And then the other thing too that I think is really unique and special about us is we do a weekly special. So we'll take a normal item, like this week it's pork belly burnt ends, and then we'll make it, or we do cheesesteak, and instead of using griddled meat, we do smoked brisket in there. So we always have an off-menu item. Just using smoked meat, and it's my belief that smoked meat just tastes better than meat that you cook in an oven or in a skillet, so you get that new unique flavor of hickory smoke. So a variety of different items that we rotate weekly, and then we have a wing. Did I say chicken wings? Maybe I missed chicken wings in the original one, but we do a wing of the week also too. So we have a rotating wing every single week, a rotating weekly special, and then those 6 core meats that we do.
What are your alcohol plans?
So we will have a limited full bar. So what I mean by that is, the major spirits, so gin, vodka, whiskey, tequila, and then beer and wine. And so we have about 5 specialty cocktail drinks and then beer and wine service. And then we have, I think, the tap system going in here. It's either 8 or 10. And then we usually like to feature the local breweries that are around that people recognize. You guys have some pretty well-known local breweries up here in Fort Collins, don't you?
Now, how many folks do you anticipate you're going to hire for your Timnath location?
I think 30 out the gate, not all full-time, some combination of full-time, part-time.
And of your 30, how many of them will be front of the house? Will actually serve alcohol, interact with customers?
Probably about 6 to 8.
Tell us about the training of those folks as it relates to alcohol sales.
Yeah, so we have an internal training program, basics that are not related to serving guests, that are comprised of, how to pour drinks, what's the proper amount of liquor that goes into a drink. And then we do some different training on carding. We do different training on recognizing on whether or not to serve somebody if they're too intoxicated. The good thing is we're not a bar. So usually at most somebody has 2 drinks in our restaurant, and then the way we are set up to, you can order fast casual or you can come over to the bar. So unless somebody's sitting at the bar, they're usually not getting a second or third drink. They order their 1 drink when they order their food. We take it to the table, and then they would have to get back up in line to get a drink. So usually, and somebody's sitting at the bar, it's not a sports bar, so people aren't sitting there watching the game, drinking all day. They usually come in, get their food, and go on about their way. So very rare cases do we ever serve more than 3 drinks. But we do want to make sure if somebody comes in intoxicated already, which can happen and does happen, that our team members know they have the authority to turn people down, and they don't have to serve somebody, because it's one of those interesting things in the hospitality world is that we always want to make our guests feel welcome, make our guests feel happy. But in situations like this, it's your duty to tell people, no, we can't serve you. So that takes time to try to explain that and show people what that looks like.
Some of these policies, procedures that you kind of touched on a little, I want to go into a bit more depth. If I were to order an alcoholic beverage, what is your policy for asking for my identity?
Yeah, well, we just asked, and do you have your ID? You got to be under, if you appear to look under the age of 40, we ask for a driver's license. After our second violation in 2021, we put we switched our POS system over to a more comprehensive one that has better benefits. And so there's a pop-up screen on there that requires the person's date of birth. So our team member is required to put in the date of birth anytime somebody orders, but we teach if they appear to be under the age of 40 to ask for identification.
And so by entering that birth date,
Correct. Yeah, the system won't allow them to move on. It'll tell them that they're under the age.
and what would the consequences be for one of your employees who fails to follow their training, violates your service policies, and were, say, to serve a minor?
We do fire them. We let them go. It's important to us to not serve minors. It's against the law, so that's not something that we forgive the person and allow them to continue to work. And we have only had, since we did that in 2021, we've had one person, and that was in our Thornton store, about a month being open, and we let the person go. Nice person, good person, but just made a mistake, and that was their last shift with us. Or as we like to say, is we promoted them to customer, is what we did.
That's all the questions I have for Jason, but at this time, if you have any follow-up questions,
Great, thank you so much. I'll tell you what we'll do. We are slated for a public hearing, so I'm going to see if there's any public comment, and then after that, if any of the board members have questions. I don't know if I got a list. Lizzie, do you know, did anyone sign up to speak?
No, nobody did.
Okay, very good. Well, if nobody's signed up, I'll just toss it out there now. Is there anybody that didn't get a chance to sign up but would like to address the board this evening? Okay. Seeing none, then we will return to questions. Board members, any questions for the applicant? Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I don't have a question. I have a comment. I've actually eaten at the Westminster store multiple times. I also have your app. I'm
Great.
ready to use it as soon as you open.
Great.
And the barbecue is delicious. My brother-in-law is also a barbecue competitor. So I have an idea of what goes in to that, and I love your barbecue. So looking forward to your opening in Timnath.
Great, thank you. That means a lot. Thanks for coming in. Who's your brother-in-law?
He's in California,
Oh, okay.
so and he is not as successful as you in the barbecue field. He's actually a lawyer by trade, so and he's pretty successful at that.
I would say much more intelligent than me going down restaurant paths.
We'll see.
Any other questions? I just had one, which is with respect to the three prior violations you mentioned. Were those law enforcement stings, or did those come by through some other means?
All three stings, yeah. And the first two were on our old system, which, in the very beginning, just being a restaurant person, you kind of just get whatever you can afford and stuff. And then we eventually upgraded to a better, more comprehensive system. And since then, with the pop-ups, I think it's much better and it's pretty clear. And you've got to really ignore it, or either be negligent or ignorant to not enter in the proper information and get the ability to ring in a sale. So I was very disappointed when we had that last one, but it's tough. It's tough when you got a lot of different people, but we still make no excuses and we take full responsibility for that kind of stuff when it does happen.
Appreciate it. Sounds like you have taken that very seriously, and we appreciate that. Anything else before we move on? Okay. Then, is there a motion to approve the resolution approving the liquor license for GQ Barbecue Timnath LLC?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Let's begin with discussion, specifically as it relates to the criteria. Board Member Jenkins.
I think they met all of the criteria per staff's recommendation. I think there were two individuals that were a little unhappy with the with the preference collection, and obviously those two people aren't counted, and that there's still an overwhelming number of adults that approved of or desired to have this business have a liquor license. So I'm in favor of the liquor license for GQ Barbecue.
Okay, Board Member Lake.
I'll just echo what Bill said as far as the application meeting the requirements. Having a overwhelming majority of the people you spoke with be in support of this. I have not had the opportunity to eat at the restaurant, but I look forward to you opening and will definitely be in there.
Yeah, I'll also echo, I mean, meeting the requirements. I also have, I think 3 locations have ate it. It's pretty darn good.
Oh, good.
I always wonder how, if you're the expert, how you can convince other people to become the expert. So I'd like to come to your house and eat the personal food, because that's normally probably better than what other people are making at your restaurant. So you let us know when that invite is. And again, I mean, you know, you can't overlook the fact that there were 3 violations. I appreciate greatly the presentation explaining that what you've done to make those corrections. My concern when I heard it was minor. Obviously, you know, all sting based, but hopefully your staff has learned from this. Process has been put in place even from the one in June, and that Timnath location is a big success for you.
Yeah, I'm going to obviously be voting in favor of this tonight. I appreciate the clarification on the neighborhood tonight, looking at that within the 1 mile radius and then going through that petition process to look through it. So I appreciate that. Now looking through the what is required here. So obviously not within 500 feet. That's obviously met here tonight. Good moral character. I think looking through this tonight, I think things have been put in place to help resolve some of those things. And then looking through where we see businesses and obviously adults in the area in favor of this. So I'm not seeing any reason to vote and not in favor of it. So I am going to vote yes.
I also am in favor. There's very much a need in town. I mean, for establishments generally, but you know, we keep hearing where are the local restaurants, where are the establishments. So we really are excited that you're coming to Timnath. I have had your product at the Folsom Field location and was impressed. So yeah, we're very excited to have you here. I do believe that all the criteria for the liquor license is met, and so I also am supportive. Any other comments? All right. Then all those in favor of approving the liquor license signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, nay? Passes 5-0. Welcome to town.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
And with that, we can adjourn the liquor board meeting. And then I will now call to order the Tuesday, March 10th regular Timnath Town Council meeting. Lopez, can you take the roll on that, please?
Yes, of course. Mayor Robert Axmacher,
Present?
Mayor Pro Tem Luke Wagner,
Here.
Council Member Jeremy Holt,
Here.
Council Member Bill Jenkins,
Present.
Council Member Lisa Lake.
Here.
All right, everybody is present and accounted for. Council, any requests to amend the agenda this evening? Seeing none, we will move on to public comment. Public comment is an opportunity for folks to address the council on items that don't otherwise have an opportunity. Tonight, the options, the other items with public hearings are items 7A and 7B related to the Colorado Wildlife Resiliency Code and amending the Timnath Land Use Code. If you'd like to speak on those, we'd ask that you wait until those are called. Do we had anyone sign up this evening?
No.
Okay. Looks like nobody has signed up, but is there anyone present that would like to address council this evening? Okay. Seeing no one, we will move on then to the consent agenda, consisting of 3 items this evening. First, approval of the February 24th, 2026 Town Council meeting minutes. Second, resolution number 14, series 2026, a resolution appointing a designated election official for the April 7th, 2026 election. And third, resolution number 15, series 2026, a resolution approving the intergovernmental cooperative agreement with the Poudre Valley Fire Protection District for the administration and enforcement of the Colorado Wildlife Resiliency Code. Council, any requests to remove any items from the consent agenda? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as read?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. All right, the consent agenda will pass unanimously. We will move on to reports, beginning with council reports. Let me begin with Councilmember Jenkins this evening.
Sure. At the last NFR MPO meeting last week, it was mentioned, and I know we had town staff in the audience. It was mentioned that there would be implementation money becoming available in the form of grants related to the traffic safety, which, as you all know, the town of Timnath received a $200,000 plus safety plan grant that I believe is ongoing, started in maybe January, I think. So I think we could be in a good position based on the fact that we have some plans there that are going to take some funds to implement, and there's going to be new grant funding available. So hopefully we'll be able to apply for a grant to cover some of the implementation costs that come out of that traffic safety plan study. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Lake.
Just one quick update. Last week, I had the opportunity to attend Timnath Elementary School for their Read Across America Day. So I was able to read 4 different classes, a 5th grade class and 3 second grade classes. This is the second year that I've been able to do that. And just a quick shout out to Timnath Elementary School for inviting me. And I know I'm looking over at Luke because I guess he'll probably say the same thing. Just thank you for that opportunity. And it's always something that's enjoyable.
Yes, Mayor, I don't know if you were able to share this. Unfortunately, I wasn't at the last meeting, but both the mayor and I got to see the unofficial grand opening before the kids went in for respite care a couple weeks back. And any of you that get the opportunity to go tour that facility, it's unbelievable. Nina did a fantastic job. From the sounds of it, the staff is unbelievable, and even more, they managed to fund the entire $12.5 million project by donations in under 18 months, which is the craziest thing I've ever heard. So we have a pretty darn good community. There's people that support that stuff. And more importantly, I think they're close to tripling the amount of kids and families that they're able to support, more than double the overnight capacity. Again, I encourage, if you get a chance to go down there and check it out, their parks, their just the overall presence of that in our community is amazing. And the turnout was spectacular too. I would bet there was well over 100 people just for that event that we were at too. So a lot of support for it. I appreciate all of the town staff and getting that through the finish line. And I encourage our police department to give them a little bit of extra love as they're open till 9 o'clock on some nights. So make sure as construction stays there that the families coming and going at late hours are protected too. So great space. Congratulations to them, and let's bring a couple more of those to our town. Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, so my comment was also on Read Across America. I want to also thank Poudre Fire and Timnath PD for being there. They were definitely the cool people there. I didn't ask, the kids were asking a lot of questions, and Poudre Fire came in, so nobody is really interested in knowing how a resolution was passed, but they were really interested to know what happens if there's a fire in the basement or what if there's a fire outside. But I got to read some books that my kids love, so it was kind of cool to read those. I read Pig the Pug and Bruce the Bear, so I don't know if you guys have ever read those, but they loved it. So it was really refreshing, right, to go and do something like that with the kids. They're amazing, and the teachers were amazing. So I just want to thank Timnath Elementary for having us and letting us do that. So thank you.
So last weekend, so Timnath Middle, both the boys basketball team, and the girls basketball team are in the state playoffs. So we hosted here in town the first round, and got a chance to attend the game last weekend where the boys in double overtime won at the last minute. It was an incredible game. So that was a ton of fun. But both of them play tomorrow morning. They're down at the Denver Coliseum in the Great Eight. So be rooting them on, and I believe if they win tomorrow, they would play on Friday, if I'm not mistaken. And then the championship would be on Saturday. So fingers crossed, rooting for them. Next Monday, we have the election forum here, 6 p.m. in Town Hall for the candidates. It'll be part of the upcoming election. So I encourage folks to either come check that out in person, or it will be live streamed and also archived to learn more about who's involved there. And then we are still soliciting applications for our various committees, the Prost Committee, the Finance Committee, and Planning Commission. So those are due on Monday, but we have some opportunities for folks to get involved there, and would ask people to consider putting their name in the hat. Anything else before we move on? All right. We'll move on to our regular business items, beginning with 6A, Resolution Number 16, Series 2025, a resolution supporting the Timnath Main Street designation as an official Colorado Main Street community and committing staff and financial resources. Ms. Graves.
Good evening. I am going to pass the baton to Katie Gibson and Matt Wasserman, our chair and vice chair.
Great. Gibson, Mr. Wasserman, welcome.
Hello, everyone. There does not appear to be a clicker.
Oh yeah, I love a clicker.
Fantastic. All right, kick it off, Matt.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having us. We appreciate it. We appreciate the opportunity to be on the Main Street Board, and we've been, and all the support from the town council. So thank you for that, not just financial resources, but your people power and being part of it. So thank you. It's been a busy several months. We've been going fast and doing a lot of work, and we wanted to give you an overview of what we've accomplished over the last several months. So we've really spent a lot of time building the foundation, so getting everything together. We had a blank slate, but we also had a ton to work from the committee that preceded us, that really advised on creating this body, and then this organization. So we quickly incorporated as a 501c3. We're waiting our federal tax exempt status from the IRS. That could take a few more months. We hear 6 months to a year to get that. We've got a bank account established, bylaws adopted, accepted, policies and procedures developed on how we'll work and how we approach our day-to-day activities and our board meetings and such. And then we established district boundaries, which we took from the Main Street, from the committee that was organized before, expanded that a little bit. So I think we've laid the legal and operational groundwork to really have a functioning nonprofit with everything behind it to get going. Our community engagement has included farmers market booth, where we collected a lot of community input. We have a survey that I'll talk about in a little bit. Business card drawing, which promoted Old Town businesses and helped us build relationships. We've been doing a listening tour, going to all the businesses, hearing from them, their concerns, their wants, their needs as businesses in Old Town. And then we partnered with the Christmas event and had popcorn, and we had a great popcorn,
So much popcorn. Just an absurd amount of popcorn.
I think it's going to be a new thing, a yearly thing. So the community survey, we had a great community survey. We spent about a month gathering input from residents across Timnath. And the results, we had 360 people complete the the survey. Outstanding results. I mean, 80% of folks eat out 1 to 2 times per week. They're going to Fort Collins to eat instead of here. So the need for restaurants such as GQ and the new Mexican restaurant and the Asian restaurant as well. So much to build on. And then also shopping outside of Timnath, and a lot would dine here if they had the opportunity and prefer local regional restaurants, so not necessarily fast food, but family restaurants, and have that family dining experience. So as you can see, 87% want outdoor dining or patios, and that would make Main Street most welcoming. Live music and community events, 67%, and more family activities, 41%. Kind of the leads, all things that we're going to focus on making happen over the next few years.
Finally,
That's you.
yeah, we worked on partnership and awareness. So all of this foundational stuff, though it feels boring and a bit slow, it's incredibly critical that we get all of it in place so that as we move forward with the Department of Local Affairs, we have the data and the information to be able to present a really good front for the town, be able to be part of the Main Street program. And so that's what we're gunning for April. So when we talk about what comes next, there have been so many incredible organizations and groups that have done a lot of groundwork for us. And what was really important to our board was no false starts. There's been a lot of promises, there's been a lot of listening tours, but the data we wanted to gather was critical for how do we get the investment that's going to be necessary. We need to know what the town wants so that we can connect what they want with the people who can provide what they want. Because we all know that we have limited resources on our Main Street. There's not a lot of viable buildings, and so we want to make sure that we're doing right with a little bit of property that we do have. And so we've connected with the Department of Local Affairs and are very, very close to submitting our application to be an official part of the Colorado Main Street program. We are due on April 22nd to have our interview with that council. And we've really focused on the 4 key pillars that are part of that program, which is economic vitality, design, promotion, and organization. Part of that was a 5-hour workshop to determine our 3-year work plan and strategic initiatives. So this is not just about putting together something on a PowerPoint, though as a marketer, love a PowerPoint, big fan of it. How do we make sure that we get rubber to the road? We had over 100 people in that survey say they want to be involved. They want to be a part of committee, they want to be part of planning, they want to be able to see what we want to see. So we joke about it a lot. There's an embarrassment of riches when it comes to everyone wants to be involved in Main Street. And so we want to make sure that we take all of that love and all of that energy and make something with it. So this is a really, really short version of what the strategic plan looks like. Each of those pillars within it has multiple work back streams. We have a Gantt chart. We are a group of individuals who most of us work within tech and work within corporate America, and so we love charts and work back schedules. And so we have a spreadsheet to say, how do we start really systematically taking over what we need to do? So each of us will take one of these pillars. You can see from design, that's why Logan has been so incredible, is working closely with all of you and all of the efforts that are going on with the town for the rebrand that's coming up, what's going on with the center that's going down, and just making sure that we can combine all of these things together so that the downtown feels cohesive. Economic vitality is going to be a really huge thing. There's a lot of incentives, there's a lot of grants. Becoming part of the Colorado Main Street program opens up even more grant opportunities for us, but most people don't know how to find those, right? Like, there's not a lot of people in the general population or entrepreneurs that are just like coasting around the internet looking for those grants, and they're confusing when you find them. So how can we as a board make these things easy to find and make the resources very digestible for entrepreneurs who want to come in? And again, really serve as the connective tissue between the government and these resources and getting people into Maine. So we are really excited. We are about 60% of the way done with our application. We have many meetings with DOLA leading up to it, and we are feeling really, really confident. So what's next? Like I said, we are at 11 a.m. on the 22nd. There's finite time where we submit that application, and then it is a very quick process to understand if we have been accepted. And once we get there, we hit into all of the resources that are part of being part of the Colorado Main Street program. So we are incredibly excited. We plan to bring quarterly updates to this group. Any questions?
Good, thank you very much.
We do.
Almost a logo.
Almost a logo. That is a GBT logo, so just like, take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Great. Council questions?
And just a follow-up, it is a requirement that we get town financial and staffing support for 3 years to get into the program. So that's our ask tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah, so could you give us the 30,000-foot benefit statement for why you want to be part of DOLA? What does DOLA provide to the town of Timnath or to this organization to help us realize some of the goals that you've already set?
Yeah, so DOLA is the umbrella organization for the Colorado Main Street program. The Colorado Main Street program is what we want to be a part of. Like I mentioned, they have an abundance of resources from connecting us to different grants and to different funding resources. They also have designed resources to help us understand, what should our aesthetic be? How do we think about the historic preservation of the different buildings we have? They've already given us a path to be able to redo our historic survey to see of the 19 buildings that were shown in the last survey we did, are there any more? And as we do those things, they open up a pathway for us to be able to find better economic paths to be able to revitalize Main Street.
Excellent. Yeah, I know other towns nearby have realized some pretty sizable grants for the Main Street program, I think up to $1 million.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Windsor
So-
and Wellington.
Yeah.
They are both one of the top tiers. And so for Windsor and Wellington to do it, I am a very competitive person, and I believe if they can do it, we can do better.
I bet you can.
Any other questions?
All right. Very good. Looks like our questions have been answered. So is there a motion to approve the resolution supporting Timnath Main Street designation as an official Colorado Main Street community and committing staff and financial resources?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Yes, as you are well aware, I'm a very big supporter of this effort, and you guys have done a really great job in a short period of time, and I'm hoping that we start seeing physical indications of all the hard work that you guys have put in start to appear in Old Town. So big supporter, and will continue to be.
As one of the board members on the Main Street Committee, I'm obviously in full support of this. I joke, Luke and I spent 10 months on the steering committee, and it was like drawing straws of, okay, who's going to have to go and get into another committee, right? Because when you're up here, there's a lot of committees, there's a lot of involvement. And I said, I'll take it on, and somebody else is going to take it at the beginning of the year. And it's not one that I'm giving up, right? It's a great board. It's a great committee. There's a ton of work being done to this. The town shows up at almost every meeting. The support that's there is unmatched. And even more important, everybody that's on that board is volunteers. Logan is an absolute godsend when it comes to support and knowledge in this, so that the town's support and what's already been done. We're just at the starting line, and I think we got a long way to go with this thing, and I think it's going to do some amazing things. So I'm in full support. Would encourage you all to be in full support of it as well.
Yeah, through my previous work, I know the benefits this can bring. I'm definitely going to be in support of it. I think Colorado Main Street program can bring additional energy and support of our small businesses. I appreciate the work that you guys have done. This application is no small task, so great work, amazing work. I look forward to seeing what comes in the next years. So this is a great leap forward, much faster than I thought possible. So thank you.
Yeah, it's really cool to be here today. I remember it was just about 2 years ago that I think all of us showed up at the Old Town brainstorming session, and we had, 80 or so people turn up at that, and it's really exciting 2 years later to be where we're at. And I just want to thank you all for your work in this. Logan, thank you. As Jeremy said, a lot of work still to be done, but yeah, the train is on the track. So let's keep it going. Any other comments? All those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, nay? We are committed for 3 years. Thank you both. All right, item 6B, Community Development End of Year Report. Ms. Graves.
Alrighty. This is the second year that our department has done this report, and we feel it's an important communication tool to you all and the residents to provide a window into our kind of annual workload and also get a sense of the market, development application and building permit volume trends. And then it's a nice kind of performance metric piece as well. So I'm just gonna quickly run you through it. We'll host this on our website so you can play with it later and explore more. But I do wanna give a shout out to Lindsay. She's kind of the creative director of this effort. She created this and she has this ability to make really boring data somewhat fun and interesting to look at. So cheers to Lindsay. So it starts with just kind of a snapshot, some demographic and population information. And then when you scroll down, so our community development has several functions. We do current development, long-range planning. We're the enforcement arm of the town. And then we also are the building division. And we provide staff support for several committees. So the first being our mighty planning commission, all pictured there. We also provided staff support to the Old Town Steering Committee this last year. And then that turned and evolved into the Main Street Board, who you just heard from. This is a quick snapshot of the development applications and how they trend over time. And as you can see, we're experiencing a slight dip. Things have cooled off a bit, so 30% decrease in development applications since 2024, but still pretty steady since 2018. This is a really important metric, the average time to approval by application type. So this is something we like to track and really benchmark year after year. We recognize that time is money, and so our process needs to be pretty streamlined and efficient. And so we really try to have timely and comprehensive reviews and get things to the finish line as quickly as possible. And then year over year, so these are the types of development applications received. And I think the notable one is we've seen a pretty significant, little decrease in the site plan applications, and that's just typically those follow plats, so once developable lots are platted, you'll see an uptick in that site plan activity. And then this is them laid out on the ground, and this is interactive, so you can go in and see what's taking place. This is their status of where they are in our pipeline. And then here are the building permits, so the number of CCs and COs. Again, things are cooling off a bit, so another dip in the number of CCs and COs we're issuing. And then there's them on the ground. And this is a fun little thing you can play with that shows you kind of over time the development permits and where they are, a heat map. So what we've been doing with all of our time that we haven't been reviewing development applications, we've been digging into our code and trying to update it and improve it, make it clearer. This last year, 12 land use code amendments were approved. Most notable were the solar energy facilities, dark sky lighting ordinance, the ADU refinement, landscaping standards, the natural medicine facilities. So all pretty big, substantial code updates that take considerable time. And then we've also been really busy working on our comprehensive plan. So we had the first public engagement window this past fall, and that was really the kickoff. And then we're gonna have another engagement window here in a few weeks, and that's where the really fun painting of the map, the vision, the policy direction will be discussed and explored. And then this slide, it just shows business growth since 2019, and you can see that kind of upward trend. You're probably all scratching your heads, like 95 new businesses. So this does include home occupations, in-home daycares, and brick and mortar. And then our department's favorite task, code enforcement. So this was taken in-house in August of 2025. And last year we had a total of 208 cases across 13 violation types. And the most notable being Scott's favorite, the weed control piece. But yes, so we do stay busy with code enforcement. And then this is just some website traffic data. But this is something, a work in progress. We want it to be useful to you all, to residents. And so if you have any information you want us to track that you're interested in, please let us know and visit the website and explore more. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Thank you, Ms. Graves. I really appreciate that, especially the data metrics is really, really helpful and see the progress over time. I also, people can look at the downturn in activity now is either a good thing or a bad thing. I think it's really an opportunity for us. We are not growing just for the sake of growth. We want our growth to be purposeful and strategic. And quite honestly, that little bit of the downturn now allows us to really make use of the comprehensive plan update and get our land use code where it needs to be and all those things. So thank you for sharing this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I just, the data's great, like the displays. With regard to your comment about time is money and showing how the different applications and the time it takes to get through, it might be nice to look at how that has changed over time, showing, I presume there's been improvements. I also realize that applications are not all identical, even if they come in the same category, and so some things are more complex and take more time, particularly if they want to do something a little bit different. So with that caveat, it still would be nice to track if you're showing that you're improving efficiencies of getting applications through the process year over year. Yeah.
That's a good one.
After 4 years on council, I just want to turn to our town manager and say, and our town council and say, this is stuff that we just didn't have when we had external staff. And this is kind of really cool progress that we've made as a town. Ideas like this, Logan, are amazing. Like the data like this is just stuff that I don't remember seeing 4 years ago. So I appreciate all this that you bring forward, and it's great. Thank you.
Just curious, this is more community development related, correct?
Correct.
Not including Phil and the rest of the folks on Planning Commission. How many make up the community development team?
We have, how many staff members do we have? I'm trying to are there 5 of us? 6 of us? Oh man, Scott, come on. Yeah.
There'll be 7. We're currently filling in an part-time enforcement person.
I figured that would be an easy question, not one of the harder ones that I've
Well, I'm like, there's Troy, there's Lindsay, there's Trace, there's.
We're constantly changing, yeah.
Yeah. And here's the thing. So anyone that questions, is there work being done or how much work's being done is crazy. To Luke's point, seeing this, the community being able to see this, the interactive, I didn't even know you could do some of the stuff that you did in this map, and being able to go click in here is phenomenal. The fact that you're doing it with 5 or 7 or whatever it is next week, that's still, it's a good amount of people. That's growing the amount of work that the Planning Commission puts in, council puts into we're just small little Timnath, but there's a lot of moving parts, which is evident in this, just the community development piece of it. And people like us, 56,000 views on our page. So if anybody says they can't find us, 56,000 people did. So I think we've got good representation across the board. So this is awesome. Keep this stuff coming.
Well, thank you. I believe we're on to 6C Resource Central Partnership. Ms. Graves?
Yes. So we are really excited to launch a partnership with Resource Central. So this will be the first year. And, you know, water has been top of mind for you all, for us. And staff believes that even these little efforts really kind of make an impact and can add up. So a little bit about Resource Central. They're a nonprofit in Boulder, and their mission is to put conservation into action. So make it so simple that you don't even know you're doing it. They partner with more than 50 municipalities and water providers in Colorado. And their partnership model is awesome because it makes it a really light lift for us. Essentially, we fund their program, and then they provide the dedicated staff, program execution, and customer service. And then Ben has been instrumental in helping us market the materials and get the word out. So they offer 4 different programs: Garden in a Box, Slow the Flow, Lawn Replacement, and Waterwise Yard seminars. And we have opted into the Garden in a Box and Lawn Replacement program to start. Our utility providers do offer the Slow the Flow. So Garden in the Box launched in 2003, and over 83,000 garden kits have been distributed since that year. And how it works, it's like a plant by number map that you receive, and these are all designed by professional landscape horticulture professionals. And so you kind of get this professional design at a very low cost. And so here's kind of a before and after. You see this house converted some water-thirsty turf into a garden in a box, waterwise lawn. So Resource Central did some research on what the water savings and what the impact is, and they found that the Garden in the Box participants used 8 gallons per square foot per year on their landscapes, as opposed to 19 gallons per square foot per year for cool season turf grass. So a savings of 11 gallons per square foot. So pretty substantial. Denver Water has identified that 12 gallons per square foot per year is a good benchmark for efficient outdoor water use. So these are even more efficient than that. And then the lawn conversion program. So this is an incentive to replace that thirsty lawn with low water alternatives like native and water-wise plants. And participants have 2 ways of using this program. So they can have Resource Central's crew remove the requested section of lawn and haul it away, or they can remove it themselves and then use the discount towards garden kits, the Garden in the Box kits, for about $750. So the discounts available, since this is our first year, we wanted to just pilot it and see how much interest we have. We have 25 discounted boxes available. So the first 25 participants will receive $25 off their order, and then 10 lawn replacement available. And so it's first come, first serve. Applications are open right now for the lawn replacement, and then they open tomorrow for the Garden in the Box. So I've left these will be at the front desk, and then we're gonna distribute more information, but you know, spread the word. We're excited about this partnership, and we'll report back on how it goes.
Thank you. Any questions? Very cool. Have we seen any application, or they open up tomorrow? Is that what you say?
Yes, I believe so. Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, I've already seen some of this on our social media, so thank you, Ben. Appreciate you getting that out. Excellent. On to item 6D, first reading and setting a public hearing at 6 PM on March 24th, 2026 for an ordinance concerning the financing of the acquisition and construction of a rec center with associated amenities and supporting public improvements, and in connection therewith, authorizing the execution and delivery by the town of a site lease agreement, a lease purchase agreement, and other documents related thereto, and providing other matters related thereto. Carolyn, are you trying to make these as long as possible?
You'll have to blame Bond Council Kim Crawford for that title. That was not my title.
Okay, whew, that's a mouthful. Scagliardi.
Good evening. This ordinance is set for the first reading tonight. Public hearing scheduled in 2 weeks. This is the authorizing the lease purchase agreement for the recreation center. So the intent is to issue certificates of participation for the design and construction of the rec center. As a reminder, certificates of participation are not considered debt. They're a lease purchase agreement, and they're subject to annual appropriation by the town. The annual lease payments will be paid from the increased sales tax from the ballot initiative that was passed, sales and use tax. And the leased property will be the future recreation center, so there's not going to be any further collateral required by the town. The parameters in the authorization are a lease term for 30 years, aggregate principal of lease of $92 million, annual lease payments shall not exceed 6.9, and the maximum effective interest rate shall not exceed 5.4. So these are the parameters of do not exceed. We set those parameters knowing that they will probably be less than that. But that's just the authorization that will go into effect. Timeline, we're going to start incurring some expenses relative to the recreation center in the next few months. Design and CGMC contracts will be awarded in the next 60 days, and we anticipate this financing to close in May. So the timing is very prudent with the timing of expenditures. With that, I'll entertain any immediate questions, but looking forward to the public hearing in a couple weeks.
Lisa, any questions?
Just a quick one with regard to the financing closing. I presume we pulled the money, we actually get the money as we incur the expense rather than get it all at once?
Yes, we will have, as we incur expenses, we'll be doing drawdowns.
Got it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Very well, then, is there a motion to approve on first reading to set a public hearing at 6 PM on March 24th for the ordinance doing all the rec center things that I already read?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, nay? We'll be back for public hearing on March 24th at 6 PM. Item 6E, Resolution Number 17, Series 2026, a resolution approving a temporary moratorium on the approval of service plans or service plan amendments for special districts. Ms. Steffel.
Thank you. As you know, we held 2 work sessions related to special districts with town council at the last 2 meetings and discussed, prior to the regular meetings, discussed changes that the council would like to see to the model service plan of the town, to update it to be consistent with both legislative changes that have been enacted in the last 5 years that affect special districts, and also changes in town policy, and with goals of increasing transparency to residents, and looking at some of those other policy issues. In order to make sure that we are doing this correctly and taking the time needed to reach those changes in the model service plan, council did discuss having staff bring back to them a proposed moratorium. As you'll see, this is a very short moratorium of 60 days or until you approve a model service plan. And we will be sending a model service plan to you for consideration to get some feedback, but then we'll also be putting it on as a legislative item at an upcoming meeting. And that's really about all there is.
Thank you very much for doing this. I know that you know, there was some thought that maybe we can move quickly and not do a moratorium, but I think this accomplishes both the goal of doing it right and trying to keep things moving, so thank you. Any questions? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the resolution approving a temporary moratorium on the approval of service plans or service plan amendments for special districts?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, discussion. John? It has all been said. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, nay? Very well, 60 days, we're on the clock. We'll now move on to our two public hearing items this evening. First, ordinance number 5, series 2026, an ordinance amending the municipal code and adopting by reference the 2025 Colorado Wildfire Resiliency Code in accordance with state statute. Director Robinson.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. If you recall, we held a work session regarding on this topic a few weeks ago. I will give some high-level reminders of what this ordinance does. I also appreciate you considering the resolution with the cooperative agreement with PFA, which is a key piece, a part of this ordinance. The state mandated a minimum requirement for building and landscaping requirements that was adopted earlier in 2025. That's based on the wild urban land interface. The state went through and mapped the entire state about fire intensity and made these classifications on which corresponds to the different levels of minimum requirements. This new code applies to new construction and or significant alterations to existing structures. So quickly overview, the state adopted the code back in July of 2025. Local municipalities are required to adopt state code by April 1st, which we are on track to do. The code will become effective on July 1st, 2026. With that, there'll be some educational outreach we'll do prior to that, and then we have some annual reporting to follow up with regarding that. This is just a real general overview of that intensity classification. So again, the state mapped the entire state on intensity. So there's some areas that were not rated as low intensity. With the state code, those would not need to meet any new requirements. Areas that are yellow were identified as low intensity, and then orange and red were identified as moderate and high. Within our GMA, within our corporate boundaries, we do have both low and moderate intensity areas that were mapped. Larimer County did recently adopt the code, and they basically adopted the entire county, needing to comply with Class 2 classifications regardless of the map. So again, you can be more restrictive than the state standard and not less restrictive. This is just a little graphic to show how the fire code will impact an individual property. So depending on where you are geographically and what classification you are on that fire intensity relates to various requirements, either hardening around the property, different building materials on the structure, and you can kind of see how that code is on that house on the left versus which class code it needs to comply with. And again, just wanted to point out that there are exemptions. So again, this is mostly for new buildings and construction. Exemptions for structures less than 200 or less than 500 square feet. Sheds and other things less than 120 square feet or 10 feet away from the structure, historic structures. So there are provisions and exemptions in the code. This is a snapshot of some areas that are identified by the map as the intensity areas. So we have some low intensity areas mapped in the yellow, and we have some orange areas that are moderate. What those two intensity ratings relate to whether a Class 1 classification for those improvements or Class 2 classification. You can see many areas are not mapped. The state code would not require any of that, but what we are proposing to do is identifying all areas within Timnath for consistency to be Class 1, And then those few locations that are orange would need to meet that Class 2 classification. Again, keeping in mind that Larimer County, for areas outside Timnath, are meeting Class 2 classifications. Again, thank you for approving the resolution to have an IGA with Poudre Fire Authority. They're kind of a key partner with us in implementing this code in regard to fire codes and compliance and inspection. Depending on if we adopt this tonight, we do have, like my mic went out. We do have a deadline of July 1st. With that time between now and then, we'll be doing some outreach with our builders so that they understand what the new requirements are. And then we will have some reporting requirements with the state regarding to that. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Director Robinson. Of course, we did the work session and had first reading on this, but before we move to questions, so we are slated for a public hearing. So has anyone signed up?
No.
Okay, is anyone present that didn't sign up but would like to speak this evening? Seeing no one, we'll move to council questions.
Yeah, I'm obviously in favor of this. I'm wondering if there would be some resources available to existing homeowners who will soon be in Class 1 classification, if there are things they could do to their existing home. And I'm thinking particular fences and decks and so on. Some guidance from the town of, if you wanted to meet the Class 1 requirements, even though you don't currently have a project that would require conformance, what could you do to meet those requirements? And also, I'm guessing that if you do, you might actually get a benefit from your fire insurance on your home if you met the requirements.
There are currently some good resources being generated now. I mean, there's many communities kind of in the same situation where we are, and there's kind of a mutual group that we get together and discuss those things. So there are some good resources to help educate people on things like fences and pruning your trees and what have you. There's a lot of things that currently builders are already doing. That's why we recommended that Tier 1. That's a pretty low level step above the state minimums to help harden your property and have some minimal changes to construction materials. Fences are one that get a little bit tricky. We don't currently require permits. Try to need to coordinate with residents. The big thing with fences about hardening is they can't be within 8 feet of your home and attaching to your structure. Looking at options to what kind of materials could be, there's some ratings about the flammability of what have you. So, you know, the irony is vinyl fences are actually an approved material. It is flammable, but they don't have that ignition standard or potential that they might have. Currently, we don't really allow vinyl fencing, but there are other options that we could be looking at and educating the public on what they can do.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if once we get there, once those resources, educational resources available, if maybe we could have a page on the town website that would link to those resources. I know I'd be interested in doing some modifications to my house to meet the standards, and my house was built like 8 years ago. So
yeah, and I think, you know, I think insurance would be coming around, playing into, you know, how the insurance companies are going to be viewing the state, the code compliance and what have you. The state will be remapping areas here in a couple years, so that intensity level may change. I know sometimes people look at the map and they're like, well, why is this subdivision mapped a color when there maybe doesn't have that fire potential that it might have had in the past? But with that said, there are resources that we can provide that information with.
yeah, it also relates to the moratorium and the model for new metro districts, et cetera. The model agreement, I think, should make sure that it allows for modification to meet the Class 1 or Class 2 standards as required by the mapping. Because I'd hate to get to the point where, gee, I'd like to use this fence material to meet the fire standard of class 1, but my metro district won't let me because architectural committee doesn't like the way it looks.
Well, again, they're going to have to comply with that. That's, we don't enforce their HOA rules, but they need to be compliant with
Right.
the town's regulations. So that's part of that outreach and education that they'll go
Awesome.
out. And, I think last time when I presented the first reading,
Yeah.
some of these fires actually might start outside in the WUI, the wild urban interface, and actually end up in a built-out urban area, which, unfortunately was a situation like Marshall Fire.
Right.
So people sometimes look at the map and like, well, that can't happen to me.
Oh,
It
but
may,
it
and I
can.
think that's what we're trying to help prevent with this, so.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Scott.
Any other questions?
So I know you mentioned it would go into effect July 1st, that you would work with home builders and things like that. If they've already been granted permits and are starting building between now and then, are they required to follow, or will they be encouraged to follow, or what's the process for those homes that are kind of in that limbo stage?
Well, generally, like with the building code, we did a similar thing, is we adopted it and had an effective date. So once something's in the pipeline, we don't really say, oh, too late, you haven't got your certificate of occupancy yet. Like I said, many of the class 1 things, most builders are already doing that. The building code, we already adopted a class 4 shingle, and that already is compliant. So there's some things that we're already pretty much doing anyway. The fencing and some of the landscaping might be the things that we'll have to flag and identify, and that's kind of working with the HOAs, metro districts on what their design criteria are with that.
All right. Then is there a motion to approve the ordinance amending the municipal code and adopting by reference the 2025 Colorado Wildlife Resiliency Code in accordance with state statute?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, I think this makes a lot of sense. We know there's been a history of wildfires going in to develop subdivisions to create great loss. And hopefully these new standards will mitigate some of the factors that cause that extensive personal or private property losses. So I'm definitely in favor of it, and I'm actually looking forward to seeing what I can do to my own house to harden it, even though I'm not planning any major remodels. So,
Mayor Pro Tem.
Makes a lot of sense. I appreciate all the hard work, Scott, and your staff's work on this to get us to this point, and I think it makes sense to become compliant with everything we need to do.
I'm also in support of it. Obviously, we've spent a good amount of time on this. I'm glad of the partnership with PFA. I think for those that look into it, and as I was saying to Lisa, the state farms, all states, farmers, insurance agents, if they were smart, would create a marketing campaign of the savings that could be had by coming up to code. So maybe a thought for those folks out there. But I know we moved into a new house less than a year ago, and our cost of insurance, because it meets a lot of these parameters, was about a third of what it was of our house that was built in 2014. So there's definitely some big savings to be had, and obviously offers a ton of protection too. So I'm all for it.
All right. All those in favor of the ordinance signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, nay? Passes 5-0. Move on to 7B, ordinance number 6, series 2026, an ordinance amending the Timnath Land Use Code. Mr. Kemper.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. With this amendment, staff is proposing a comprehensive sign plan, or a CSP, to the town's process and procedures, which would allow for a coordinated and flexible approach to signage for the larger and more complex developments. Currently, signage within the town is regulated through individual sign permits in accordance with Article 7 of the Timnath Land Use Code. And while this process does work well for single buildings and smaller sites, it does not provide that coordinated review mechanism for those larger, more complex developments. As a result, signage is reviewed on a case-by-case basis without that overarching plan for the entire development, which could limit flexibility and create the potential for inconsistent sign design or visual clutter across a site or the development as a whole. This is becoming increasingly relevant here in the town as we anticipate larger commercial developments in the future. And so without a coordinated approach, these types of developments could result in a signage that lacks visual cohesion or contributes to an inconsistent character within that commercial or campus style environment. The process is intended to provide an alternative means of compliance beyond that strict adherence to Article 7 of the code, again, for additional flexibility and creativity within a structure review that could support a unified approach and character for development. I would like to acknowledge that the graphic on the screen was generated by the aid of software and is exaggerated from what the code would permit. However, I do think that it does visualize the broader concept of having a coordinated sign program and how that could reduce clutter and actually improve that overall visual consistency within a development.
Disappointed, I was ready to eat at Gino's. Yeah.
Okay, so what is a comprehensive sign plan? So the proposal of a CSP aligns with the town's sign code currently, which is intended to protect public health, safety, and welfare while furthering the purpose statement stated within the code, which is section 7.1 on the screen, that recognizes that signs are a necessary means of visual communication for the convenience of the public and private flexibility within the sign review and approval process to allow for unique circumstances and creativity. So that is a purpose statement in our sign program or sign code. We do not have a mechanism to currently actually result in that purpose. The qualifying developments for this plan would include multi-tenant, mixed-use, land development overlay districts, and large-scale non-residential developments, such as an institutional site, so that could be a healthcare facility or similar. Through this process, limited adjustments may be requested to a sign's type, size, height, number, or location while ensuring that all signage remains proportional, visually cohesive, architecturally compatible, and supportive of effective business identification. As we would see it from staff, for the town, this approach helps reduce that visual clutter and promotes a more consistent and attractive sign program, aligning with the community's design standards. For the applicant and developer, this program provides greater design flexibility and more predictable approvals, being that they would streamline those programs and approvals once those applicants move forward, later on understanding the guidelines in which they are reviewing them for. And then for the community, this just results in a clear wayfinding and improved visual character for supporting the identity of the community or the area in which they are located. So a developer may submit for a CSP voluntarily, or, my apologies, or may be required by staff when a coordinated approach is felt to be necessary for larger, more complex developments. The plan would include key information about the proposed sign program, including the sign types, locations, sizes, height, materials, color, and illumination. The applicant must also provide the building elevations or renderings illustrating the placement and scale, and even a wayfinding plan if applicable, and also justification for any requested deviations from the standard code requirements in Article 7. And lastly, we would also request that there be an acknowledgement from those tenants or future tenants, understanding that any future signage would comply with the comprehensive sign plan for that development. Once that is submitted, it is reviewed for completeness and compliance with the town's criteria, and would include the evaluation of whether the sign program is consistent with the intent of the sign code, whether it provides a coordinated and proportional signage within the plan, and is maintained maintaining safety to avoid traffic hazards or obstructed sight lines. The Community Development Director would review and may approve, conditionally approve, or deny the proposal. If the requested deviations that are proposed are deemed substantial, or if the proposal is in conflict with the intent of the code, the application may be referred to the Planning Commission for review and decision. Once that program is, or plan is approved, it would govern all future signage on that property, and individual sign permits would remain consistent with the approved plan. I would also note that based on if it is an administrative decision, there is the ability to appeal that to the Board of Adjustments per the town's code currently. And so, as I mentioned earlier, Article 7 is what regulates these signs, except where specifically stated otherwise in the code. It establishes the various sign types and standards that apply within each zone district, and the CSP would be intended to build upon those existing regulations set forth in Article 7 to achieve that coordinated system of signage. So this diagram just shows, it is pulled directly from the article. It just shows how there are different sign types established within our code. And so each of these may have separate regulations established by zone district. And through the CSP, the applicant could request deviations to those, provided that the resulting signage program demonstrates an equal or superior outcome compared to strict compliance of the code. So in preparation for this proposal, we as staff looked around to see where others had utilized such a program. Few examples are coming out of Denver, so maybe a slightly different context of what we're dealing with in Timnath, but also smaller, more growing townships also are utilizing this. And there's North Glen as well, which we had noticed an established CSP already utilized. So on the screen, in addition to the design principles and the types, one from City of Denver, this map shows multiple users within their site, establishing an area to where off-premise signs could be located strategically to help promote the identification within the development, while also offering other objectives to the city to help limit clutter within it. So this just shows the location of these plans within that. Same with another development in the City of Denver. Again, this is a pretty lengthy document. This is just one page from that, showing identifications of areas strategically through review with the city. This could also be utilized, as I mentioned earlier, as a large non-residential development, should that be maybe a hospital. The city, or North Glen, utilized this process to review the signage for a specific user. A lot of times within codes, maybe specifically the towns, there are maximum size requirements per use, and sometimes based on the scale of that use in the use itself, there may be the need to have more strategic signage within that to help with that identification and create that character. At the February 17th Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission considered the proposal of the Land Use Code Amendment and ultimately recommended approval to Town Council with a 3-to-1 vote. During the discussion, the commissioners generally supported the CSP concept, but did raise a couple of concerns for clarification that are on the screen. First, that some expressed interest in including a more measurable standard to clearly identify the CSP and when that should be referred to Planning Commission. And secondly, that there was some confusion about the timing and the applicability of the CSP. Commissioners interested in understanding when that CSP would actually be submitted and reviewed. So through that, we did clarify that it is intended to be flexible. So for larger developments, the comprehensive approach may be applied for the entire development early on. But in contrast, a large institutional use, for example, could be reviewed more at the site plan stage when those building locations and layouts are known. So there is flexibility built in and intended for this to allow for multiple stages to review these signs. Currently within the proposal, section 2929 allows the community development director to refer those to planning commission. And currently that just states as if the requested deviations are substantial in scale, intensity, or visual impact, or if the proposal conflicts with the intent or purpose of the sign code. This was intended to ensure that higher impact proposals based on the scaling of what that development was were able to receive that additional review when appropriate. However, in response to Planning Commission's feedback, staff considered adding a measurable criterion, being that if a mixed use or commercial or non-residential zone district proposed a CSP that included at least 50,000 square feet of ground floor area or 100,000 square feet of the zone area, which could include contiguous lots, would be eligible for referral to the Planning Commission. The intent behind this is that these thresholds reflect the higher intensity of development with larger footprints, so there could be likely a request to have an adjustment to that sign size or number beyond what would be appropriate or to scale, and so that would be something that we think would be appropriate or we would support including as an additional item for recommendation or referral to Planning Commission. And so with that, staff recommends approval of the proposed land use code amendments to include the comprehensive sign plan into the town's process and procedures.
Thank you, Mr. Kemper. We are scheduled for a public hearing here. I don't believe anyone has signed up. Is that correct? Is there anyone present that did not sign up but would like to speak on this? See no one, then we will move on to council questions. I know I have a list, but I'll see if anybody else would like to kick us off.
Are there, I think Ladera in overall size, right, in the scope of this, Ladera is already underway. I'm sure some of them have already submitted for signs that may or may not be fit into this. How does existing developments, let's call it Ladera, and their multiple phases, you know, the development right here next to us that has multiple businesses, how does that, those that are already in process, or how does this affect them?
So typically that would just be in review for the new users, or if they were to change or convert using the uses within those areas. So for Ladera example, there are a few users that are moving forward. Those ones would be permitted within the code in which they applied. However, if there is a comprehensive sign plan or program for that overall development, new users would be required to adhere to that sign plan.
I'm more thinking the overall, the monument stuff, right? I mean, there's going to be probably the larger scale with multiple, and you had a reference picture of it up there. That kind of shows different aspects, what's in there, maybe even at the entryway or the entryway from County Road 5, whatever it may be, that shows what businesses are in there. Has that stuff already been approved? Will this change their approach and where they can put it? Because some of those phases haven't been done or submitted yet, I guess maybe share some light on that.
Yes, so we have had feedback and communications with the Ladera development as far as having a CSP within that. So there have already been some conversations that they've had with these users already that could align with a more unified or less cluttered approach right now. These are willing users that have understood that requirement. So typically, they would need to follow what the new CSP would be. However, there has been some overarching communication with this in order to kind of create a development that would reduce that clutter. As far as other users within the town, most of those would probably not retroactively do a CSP. This is most likely going to occur for more of the new new developments within the town, and so therefore they would have some of those existing, or what would be the conforming uses of signage on that site.
And then I guess one more question for me. Different geographical areas inside of our town, let's say Old Town, for example, and the revitalization of Old Town, and as businesses come and signs go, is there going to be different design aesthetics depending on where you are in town? So if Old Town wants to keep more of a historical approach and goes that route versus the standardized Harmony Road look, how will that differ depending on locations throughout this town?
Yeah, that's a great question. So each CSP would likely could have their own character or vision to them. However, plans where they're initiated maybe from the town or through our partnership, maybe there could be a coordinated vision with that, but they could, each one essentially is built on their own. So the character and design aesthetics, while we can encourage them at a staff level to kind of get in line, they could have their own feel to that.
And who's the overarching approval of those separate CSP? Would that be staff? Or
That would be staff, yeah.
Staff would have the ultimate say.
Correct.
And then oversight of that would fall in certain scenarios under Planning Commission?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
So looking at our land use code, thinking about it, going back to section 7, first thought that comes to mind, and I just want to make sure I understand, LED signs, large ones, prohibited, section 7, right?
That is correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're not changing any of that. So there's things we see in other communities that are going up. Those we're not even talking about now, right?
So if there were something that were to be proposed that is currently thought of as, or it is prohibited in the code, if they were to request that and it met the character and intent, that is a new, or that is a prohibited sign, so that would be automatically kicked up for review to get additional feedback on such signage.
What does that mean? Sorry. That would come to Planning Commission Council?
That would come to Planning Commission.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So prohibited signs wouldn't even come to council then, like?
Yeah, one of the purposes of the comprehensive sign plan is to allow variances, if you will, so they can propose to modify and to allow something that's either prohibited or bigger or smaller, and then they look at the comprehensive plan, and then under this, it would go to Planning Commission, not to council.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, because I just know the signs are a big deal in other communities, those LED signs, because for me, I would look and be like, okay, if something is blinding people on I-25 out there, that'd be a concern for me. But additional questions. So I guess that goes, maybe this is along the same lines, Chad, like, again, total sign height. So if we go height again, and it goes outside kind of that would go to Planning Commission then again. So if we go 200 feet, that'd get kicked to Planning Commission.
So we tried to look at coming up with additional, more objective criteria that would help kick that.
Yeah.
However, it was tricky being that these are context-sensitive uses. So case by case, Not all of them would be applicable in all areas.
Okay.
So part of the criteria which we put together was that it needed to be at scale or the proportion of the development that they are seeking. So currently there is not a defined amount of which goes where. That is more of a discussion internally and decision by the director as if that is creating that impact. 200 feet, yeah, certainly that is something that we would feel that would be beyond that scope and should be pushed to Planning Commission.
But it's at the discretion of town staff as this is written through.
As
the
it's
comp-
written currently.
Okay. Okay, those are my initial questions. Thank you.
Anything?
Yeah, so the addition of 2.9.20.9, my question is, does that meet the concerns that some of the planning commissioners had, the addition of that?
So during that meeting, I think there was, I think they had a bit of a hesitancy on what exactly that measurable should be as well. So this was one way that we have discussed internally as well. If it's based on the size, that creates a larger development that could then intensify the area and create the need for maybe a larger sign that needs to have additional eyes on it. Typical smaller developments, say the Riverbend use on the corner, they are roughly 30,000 square feet of that ground floor area. And so that one would be a smaller scale. Obviously, a sign of 50 feet would not be appropriate for something of that size. So it has the less chance or likeliness of that having the requests that go beyond the scope or scale.
Yeah, I mean, the size thing makes sense to me. I'm just curious whether it satisfies the planning commissioners that had concerns or not. Did you get any feedback from them?
No, so the request was, obviously, they have concerns with having needing more measurable standards. That conversation, unfortunately, was not with them to have what this was, so I did not receive feedback on whether that meets that intent.
And I would like to add, we heard their feedback and then we went and did our homework and we looked at other communities and, surveyed what those triggers were. And this one was one that really made sense to us and stood out. And so we thought this was
it makes sense to me, and that's good information to have that you went to other communities. So great, thank you.
So if someone presents a comprehensive sign plan and staff says, I don't believe that this complies with the spirit, and they want to appeal it, they appeal it to the Board of Adjustment, correct?
That is correct.
However, if they bring a proposal forward and staff says, this might be good, this might be bad, but I don't want to stick my neck out, in that case, it goes to Planning Commission, correct?
Yes, the next step would be Planning Commission.
I guess I'm wondering, is there a reason that we're filtering these to two different entities, or as opposed to having these heard by the Board of Adjustment?
Yeah, that's a fair question. So the appeal section came directly from our code currently on any administrative procedure or approval decision. Thank you. And so that's where that came from. And typically, the Board of Adjustments can be another entity outside of the town council. And so with this one being the signs, we felt that the Planning Commission assistance for their approval would be appropriate.
And then the code says that the Planning Commission's determination is final. So there is no further appeal by either side, correct?
Not beyond that point, no.
I guess I'm just contemplating if Planning Commission is the right entity or if Board of Adjustment is the right entity. Do you have thoughts on why one versus the other?
Yeah, and they would have a right, this would be a quasi judicial decision, so they would have a right to appeal in county court. And within, I believe, 28 days after the decision. So they do still have that appeal right.
Regardless of which entity makes the decision.
Can I ask a follow-up to what you were just asking? Because in the document that we have here, it says that decisions of the director may be appealed in accordance with section 2916. And 2916 mentions Board of Adjustment. So just so that we can clarify that nowhere in 2916 does it say the Planning Commission is final. So I'm not sure if that's conflicting or if something was left out on that one.
Well, they put that into the new 2928.
Yes, and that's the one that refers to the Board of Adjustment.
Well, but
If you read 2916.
yeah, which I did.
Yeah.
No, I guess it's under 2929. There's the line decisions of the Planning Commission.
Yeah, correct. So the intent under the decision made by the director is that the director's decision made by that director could be appealed in accordance with that section with the Board of Adjustments. And then the subsequent section was, if it were a Planning Commission determination, that would be final, is what was in the.
This goes on a little bit what Mayor Pro Tem was getting at, but currently we have section 7.6, which lists prohibited signs, flashing, rotating, blinking, I don't know, 100 things we prohibit there. But a comprehensive sign plan does not have to adhere to those in any way. So by going through this process, all the other prohibitions potentially could no longer be prohibited.
So everything in Article 7 would remain, just the requested deviations maybe to the number of signs, location, height, and type, but it would have to be specified as to what that type was. And so anything else would then fall under the requirements of Article 7. So this is just working with Article 7, not superseding that. It is not a repeal and replace of our sign code.
But, am I correct
Yes.
that the Community Development Director could determine that this comprehensive sign plan in its whole complies with the spirit of Article 7, and although a 24-hour blinking strobe light normally would be prohibited, but for whatever reason now is okay. Is that right?
Yes, that's my understanding, if they found it was consistent with the intent.
And then we currently kind of already have standards that talk a little bit about proportionality, but have some maximum sign sizes, and table 7.10.10 lays that out. And to our credit, for example, a maximum monument sign, if it's normally in town, is limited to 48 square feet, but if it's along I-25, that goes all the way up to 196 square feet, so essentially four times bigger. Potentially, even though we already allow bigger things on I-25, a plan could come in that would say, I want a 500 square foot sign, and that potentially could be authorized, right?
Well, I think the point, we would be evaluating that. We would be tracking what our base standards are and what's reasonable. So if they're giving up several ground signs and consolidating it into one sign, certainly they can probably increase the percentage of the size. But it has to be reasonable, and we'll be able to check other codes to be able to measure, okay, what do other communities do, and give a reasonable recommendation if it is kicked up.
what is our current process if I had an I-25 facing property and I wanted to pitch a large monument sign that is twice what we currently allow? What are my current options to pitch that and get that approved?
Yeah, so first of all, administrative staff can approve a variance up to 10% in the sign. And if it's more than that, then it would at that point, there's two options. There's a planned development overlay that can modify underlying conditions. So it could be that, or it could be a request for a variance that would then come to council, I believe.
And I think with the variance, remember there's criterias with a variance, so it wouldn't just be because, hey, I want a big sign. And I think since, you know, Councilmember Wagner brought up Ladera and LED signs, just for clarity, there is a PDO that currently does allow a very large digital sign on that property. So with this, that would be a way to help address some of those other concerns about how do we minimize clutter, how do we kind of bring things back to what maybe the original intent was. With that, I'm not in a position to be like, yes, I you know, agree. I'm more in the position of bumping things up, but if it makes sense on the smaller scale, smaller level things, we are consolidating signs, removing that clutter, then I think that that provides that administrative level. Currently, any sign permit comes in, there's no, it's internal review, it's a permit, there's no board review or what have you. That would be very similar to what this process would be offering.
And I guess to add to that, we did struggle with the LED sign. So it is in our prohibited sign section. And so, you know, we asked the question, do we allow that deviation with this process? And the reason we thought to allow it was, I mean, potentially, like we've heard, perhaps the town would want an EMC sign, you know, to display messages and stuff. So we didn't want to shut the door, but this kind of creates parameters around it, and we can really dig into it and evaluate if it's appropriate for the site.
Yeah, I also recall the discussion about that big sign from the developer's representative, who indicated that one of the reasonings behind that large sign was to prevent lots of clutter of signage, to have one big sign that would show all of the businesses in there and feature them prominently so that drivers on I-25 would see it, and you didn't need a big sign on every business in the development. So I would hope and I believe that staff would use the logic of the developer when considering any deviations from the current sign code for new businesses in there. I mean, I trust you guys.
Well, not to get too far off the topic, but several of us attended Planning Association National Conference in Denver, and they actually had a really great session on EMCs and digital signs, and we reached out to some of the experts in that area. So we have some good technical background about how do you regulate them, particularly light pollution, time, frequency at which the messages go. So, you know, the way that the current language we have right now, it doesn't, at least in this one instance, doesn't really provide any of those safeguards and standards, and those are things that we can certainly consider if something like this were to come forward, so that they kind of meet some of those expectations of, rather than having multiple signs along the corridor, we can minimize them, and then how do we make sure that the message boards are appropriate in context, scale, lighting, duration, frequency, and what have you.
Okay, any other questions? All right. Then is there a motion? You throw that up there. Is there a motion to approve Ordinance 6, Series 2026, amending the Timnath Land Use Code to include the comprehensive sign plan process and procedures?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, discussion, Councilmember Jenkins.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of thought put into this by staff wrestling with a variety of concerns and also feedback from Planning Commission on it. I have to trust staff to make good decisions, and I'm in favor of this. So, and hopefully we can get our arms around the other unrelated, sort of related issue of large LED signs and the other concerns that you expressed, Scott. So, but I'm in favor of this.
Like,
I'm also in favor, though. I do find it a little confusing how if you're referring them to the planning commission decision is final. And then, so it doesn't really give them any kind of opportunity to appeal. It doesn't say that they can request to go to the planning commission. So having different, for them to not have an appeal process versus somebody that you just outright deny I'm not fully on board with that. I think it could lead to some problems unless they were requesting it. But overall, I think it's something good, especially with some of the larger scale projects that we have and could potentially have in town. But just something that if that becomes an issue, maybe just reconsider and look at what that does.
If I might comment, just a reminder, they still, if the planning commission, if it's referred to the planning commission and they say no, or if it's referred to the Board of Adjustment and the Board of Adjustment says no, it's still technically not final. They have a right to appeal it within 28 days to.
Yeah, I'm not
district
talking
court
about
of
that
the county
piece.
they're located in.
I was referring to the piece where if the staff says no, they can appeal. If staff is the one that says, hey, go to the planning commission, they don't have an appeal process within the town.
True.
So.
Well, also for clarification, the appeal to the district court will be based on, we did not follow procedures and the decision was arbitrary, capricious, contrary to rule or law, right, Carolyn?
That's correct. So it would be a Rule 106 appeal based on those criteria.
I'm also in support of it. I'm of the belief that the town and staff have put in tremendous work on not only this, but in the vision of our town. I would put signs right in that same category. I do think there's a time and a place for a large LED sign, not in front of my house or on Harmony, but there's also some areas where it does work. I mean, it looks halfway appealing in front of Loveland Yards, right? I mean, for visuals there. So there is a time and a place, and I wouldn't say don't do it. To Logan's point of maybe the town wants that down the road, so not shut it off completely. But I think the town is well equipped to make ample decisions of what makes the most sense depending on each area.
Oh gosh, I appreciate the intent of this amendment. I think as our community continues to grow, coordinated sign approach can help reduce clutter. And a cohesive design is definitely what we need. I think you can look around at other places and see when they don't have something like this. And even in what you presented, Chad, you can look around at other communities and see when they don't have that and it doesn't make sense. I'm a little concerned about, to Lisa's point, about where this goes, how it's handled. I'm a little concerned in terms of us sitting behind on this side. If something gets put up that the community doesn't like, and it doesn't come to this side of the table of how that's going to be presented. If there is a giant LED sign and it is in front of your house, Jeremy, it would be our fault. So I am concerned about that. I think you're right. There is time and place for it. other communities are grappling with this. I think it almost made it to this, the state about what CSU is doing with this. So I do think it's concerning. I just wish, I do trust staff. That's not what I'm saying here. I just think that sometimes if there's an appeal process or I do like if it's over 10%, it comes to council or at least there's a process in place. So that part's just a little fuzzy to me. So I'm not 100% in support of how this looks tonight. So I don't think I'm going to be voting in support of it just because I would like to see it come to the 100% to the Board of Appeals through this process.
You want to make a friendly amendment?
I like the amendment that was put up there for the considerations. I think that gives me a little more comfort for that. But I think the proposed amendment, the proposed addition to that makes me feel a little more comfortable. But like I said, I just think having more clarity about where it'll go if there is something, but would give me a little more comfort.
So let me begin by saying I believe that a comprehensive sign plan absolutely makes sense. I think that philosophically what we're trying to do here is great. I think reducing clutter, making signage more effective. I do agree that there are times when one large sign is far more effective and far more appealing than 20 small signs. So the intent here absolutely makes sense. For me, the concern comes on the edge cases and on any cases that we are likely to see strong public feelings about the new sign. So, as I drive from here to Denver, I see things along I-25 that I say, that makes sense, that's effective. And I see things that I see, well, that is Las Vegas Strip. That is not Timnath. And I do trust and appreciate that staff will make good decisions. When we're going to get to a point that it is going to be a matter of potential public concern, I have concern that we're entrusting the Planning Commission with that decision. Ultimately, they're not elected officials, we're elected officials. And so that's where I think that these appeals ought to come to the Board of Adjustment, not the Planning Commission. And with no offense to the Planning Commission, they do a great job, but they're appointed. Go ahead, Carolyn, you have thoughts?
Yeah, I don't want to interrupt, but the role of the Board of Adjustments is limited in the town charter. So we do have some limitations that it's really not set up for something like an approval of a comprehensive sign plan. In fact, it says the Board of Adjustments can only grant variances for reasons due to exceptional narrowness, shallowness, or the shape of a piece of property, or topographic conditions, or other or extraordinary or exceptional conditions. So I would propose that if you would rather have it come to council, let's have it come to council in council's name rather than as a Board of Adjustments. Board of Adjustments can hear an appeal of an administrative decision, but if we're reviewing the sign plan in lieu of an administrative decision, then it should come to council. And the other thing to think about is that the Board of Adjustments may not always be council. Under the charter, you have the ability to appoint a different board. So you may in the future have the Board of Adjustments be appointed citizens rather than the council. So if that's important to you that it come to the council, I'd rather have it come in the council's name.
Yeah, and just a related comment. It comes to the Board of Adjustment if there's a denial, not if there's an approval. And so it wouldn't fit your your case where it's been approved and the public doesn't like it, right? It wouldn't have come to the Board of Adjustments anyway. So unless you wanted it, all of them, when they're approved by Planning Commission or they're approved by staff, that it also be approved by council, you'd have to specify that.
Yeah, and the way this is currently laid out is, the authority is vested entirely with staff unless they make the determination that this is stickier than we feel comfortable dealing with. And then they push it to someone. Currently, the someone is Planning Commission. I guess
Or if the size is over 10%, although I'm not sure that applies with the large scale.
Yeah, that's, the 10% would be modified by this. The current standard is if it's over 10% is
Right.
referred to council. Under this ordinance, it would be a different procedure. So it would be kicked if it's over the 1,000 square foot zone and the 55. It's that extra language that's in 929.
yeah, which
Over 50,000
Right.
ground.
Over 50,000
Or over 100.
square foot or over 100
and
zone.
and I'll tell you, I appreciate the suggestion there. For me, it's not so much the amount of land involved. For me, it's more about like what is the exceptional change that would be way out of the norm. And so
It's going to be
for
a
me
big
a 50,000 foot for me a 50,000 foot trigger doesn't mean anything. For me, a giant blinking sign means something.
Exactly.
So I personally appreciate what the proposed C is trying to accomplish, but that's not a concern for me. I wouldn't adopt it. What I would suggest, though, is that in 2.920.9, we replace everywhere it says Planning Commission with Town Council. It would still be a discretionary referral. There aren't any automatic triggers. But I would propose that it come to us.
And just a follow-up question, it would not go to Planning Commission first and then you guys, right? It just goes directly, if we were to defer it up, it'd go to you guys. Planning Commission would not see it.
I suppose I was proposing a substitution as opposed to a multi-phase process. Now, one could certainly argue that our multi-phase process adds a lot of wisdom and takes some of the lifting off of council. But I also know that some of this is in some ways time sensitive, and we want to be cognizant of the hoops that we make developers jump through.
I would say just go to council at this point. If it's already been through this, I don't know what you guys are thinking.
I was going to say
So
the same.
make a friendly amendment.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I mean, I'm in agreement with that. I don't think we need to, although, again, much respect of Planning Commission, but if we're not wanting to put it on their shoulders, we don't necessarily need to give them
The
take
buck
the weight
stops
off it.
here.
Yeah, so I would go straight to commission, straight to council, if that's the case.
So Councilmember Jenkins, did I hear you propose a friendly amendment to replace in 2.920.9 Planning Commission with Town Council?
Sure.
Okay. Is that acceptable to the council? Okay. Then we will consider that amendment made. Carolyn, any other concerns with how we've structured that?
No, I'm comfortable with that. We do still have an appeal of the administrative decision going to the Board of Adjustments. So I guess the last question is, are you comfortable with that as opposed to that appeal coming to council?
And can you clarify what, you listed it earlier, but the Board of Adjustment has very narrow guidelines of how they can overturn an appeal? Is that what it is, or what they have to look at?
No, I don't think so. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a Board of Adjustments would hear it and be able to decide anew. If they go to the district court and they're appealing it, it's a very narrow Rule 106 appeal. But an appeal to the Board of Adjustments would usually be an appeal anew.
Yeah, but we do have criteria for Board of Adjustments where Planning Commission and Town Council maybe has more discretion than Board of Adjustments does, but they certainly could review the criteria and standards that we have to make sure that it's consistent with that.
Is there anything wrong with changing both of them to council? If that's what we're trying to accomplish with this anyway, are we restricted by any means? Like, instead of just saying, this goes to appeals, this goes to council, this goes to planning commission, can we just make them both say council, since we'll be the appeals and we'll be the approval?
I'm comfortable with that change.
I guess I'm comfortable with it. I guess, my philosophy that I've discussed with all of you in the beginning is, you set the rules and let's administer them and delegate. And so if you're willing to take on more workload, that's your call on what this is. And mindful of that you are currently still the Board of Zoning Appeals, as well as the Liquor Board, as well as, I could probably go on. And so I just want you to be mindful of that, and we can always amend it. I mean,
Right.
These are living documents, and if this isn't perfect today, we can take a look at it and come back at you.
Yeah, I think we could do it either way. I mean, our general rule is if you don't like a staff decision, your mechanism to appeal it is the Board of Adjustment. So we would be creating a new and different rule that is specific just to signs. And given that we still sit as the Board of Adjustment,
I'm in favor of leaving it as is for the time being, and if at some point in the future it makes sense to change it, we can change it. But
Yeah, I was just looking at it as more of, we are the one and the same, right, at this point anyway, and I was more concerned of your comment earlier, we might be restricted as a Board of Appeals, but if we can operate one and the same without restrictions, whether it's Board of Appeals or council, it's the same people at this point. Fine with it.
Still quasi-judicial decision, so you're still limited by those quasi-judicial criteria.
okay. Anyone else have comments before we take the vote? Okay. So all those in favor of approving, approving ordinance number 6, series 2026, which amends the Timnath Land Use Code to include the comprehensive sign plan process and procedures with the friendly amendment to replace Planning Commission with Town Council on the discretionary staff review, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. All right, this passes unanimously.
I apologize, Mayor. The suggested addition to 2929 was not initially within that, so that's a recommendation. So if you guys supported that as an additional criteria, I think that should be part of the approval.
And I believe what we just voted on did not have that part of the approval. At least the motion I proposed, that was the intent, but is anyone concerned that that language is not added? All righty, we have just one agenda item left, which it is suggested that we continue 7C resolution number 18, series 2026, a resolution approving the Ladera South subdivision final plat. As I understand it, this is not quite ready for presentation today, but by continuing it on the record, we don't have to reserve everyone or redo notice. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. We're working on the SIA, the subdivision improvement agreement, and we just weren't quite ready to tell you it's ready, so we wanted another couple weeks.
Thank you. Anything else to add, Mr. Jones, before we consider that?
Really, I think we've made a lot of progress. The planning commission had, recommended approval. I think we're in really good shape. We're just working out some details, really.
Yeah, very good. Well, then, is there a motion to continue item 7C to March 24th?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, nay? All right, we will take that up on March 24th. I believe we have run out of things to talk about, so we will stand adjourned.